Welcome to Open Tables. With your hosts, Cynthia Sue Larson.
But it's okay for everybody to change. It's okay to let things go. And that's really powerful.
Christopher Anatra.
The universe is based on commerce. You know me as the quantum businessman.
Jerry Hicks.
I feel like I've woken up in a parallel dimension where everybody's exactly the same. They look the same memories generally speaking, but they're different.
And Shane Robinson.
Nobody has all the answers, so everybody's welcome to share their ideas, and it really expands our consciousness when we do that.
Open Tables. Unique perspectives for a new view of reality.
And hello, welcome to our first season 2, episode 1. Today we'll be talking about Truth Bubbles. I'm Cynthia Sue Larson, and we are the International Mandela Effect Conference. And this is Open Tables talking about Truth Bubble. And let's welcome, actually, before we get started, let's go to our next slide. I'm just going to read through our typical IMEC disclaimer. And this basically reminds us that the content you are about to watch is meant for thought and consideration. Please be respectful of each other and opinions shared. This is a safe space to express thoughts, ideas, and information. Please note that no copyright infringement is intended with regard to inclusion of short excerpts of material that are included in accordance with fair use under Section 107 of the Copyright Act. And next slide. So our program today, we're very excited because we have a special guest for you. This is author Roger Marsh. He'll be joining us in just a moment. We'll be going through the episode sponsors, sharing updates from myself, from Jerry, the Dark Wolf Hicks, from Shane of Unbiased and on the Fence, and from Christopher Anatra, the Quantum Businessman. And next we'll go through what is a truth bubble. We'll have a full, beautiful presentation by Roger Marsh, which I'm sure you're going to love. And then we'll have a live question and answer. So I think we can go ahead and bring everyone in, say hi. Let's.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay.
Hey, everybody.
If you could just introduce, say who you are, and I think everyone's got text. Well, let's do that anyway, just to be proper here. Introductions.
I guess we'll go down the list. I'm Shane from Unbiased and on the Fence.
My name is Christopher Anatra. You know me as the Quantum Businessman.
I'm Roger Marsh. I'm the author of TruthBubble. I'm pleased to be here. There'll be a more formal introduction later, but thank you for having me.
Oh,
Thanks,
we're thrilled. We're so happy to have you today. And this is great because you'll get to join us as we go through the sponsors that we do each month. So let's, without further ado, because we've got so much beautiful content today with Truth Bubbles, let's go to our next slide and take a look at our first sponsor. And if you can get a cute, oh, this is so cute. You'll see, this is the golden seal pup. And this was spotted in the sea of, oh my gosh, oak. I can't pronounce this. Oak.
I was wondering who was going to pronounce that word.
You may mispronounce it. I'll try. Oh my gosh. Well, it's in Russia. So if you speak Russian, I'm sure people who speak Russian can say this properly. What is it? Okhotsk. And anyway, maybe, Chris, do you want to add a few words about this one? This is adorable.
Yeah. So when this first came across my reality, I was like, this is like very interesting because they were calling it, instead of golden, it looks golden to me. They were calling it, some people were calling it a ginger seal. But if you look at it, it has more gold in color, and it has blue eyes, which is interesting. It has pink flippers. And Russian scientists are calling it the ugly duckling. That made me sad a little bit. Oh, here's the video. Here it is. And this was just recently spotted. Scientists were afraid that the other seals would ostracize him because he wasn't the same color. but it looks like he's actually fitting in well with the rest of the seal community. They said that he's being very well fed by his mother. They could tell from his weight. So he seems to be doing okay.
Well, I'm so happy to see that. When you mentioned the ugly duckling and not fitting in, it reminds me of, we just did that Christmas episode for the Mandela effects. It reminds me of Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer. Except this little guy's got the pink feet, pink-footed flippers.
And I like that better than, the golden seal. I like that better than the black sheep of the family, right? Because I know a lot of us probably feel like the outcast sometimes.
Right. He's actually really beautiful. I mean, look at that coat. That's awesome.
And the coat is gold, so we're back on that golden timeline.
Beautiful.
We love animals that are gold that give us that indication. So nice. Well, we're going to keep moving because we do have a lot of content today. Let's take a look at our next sponsor. This is number
amazing.
2. Yeah, now wait a minute. When I saw this, I couldn't believe it because it doesn't look that big in this picture. But just the fact, even if you look at just this photo right now, and you think, okay, wait a minute. I thought we covered this amazing giant turtle or tortoise that was in the Galapagos, and that wasn't too long ago. Now, so what's the big deal here? Well, the big deal is there were at one time giant turtles on all of the continents except for the Antarctica and Australia, I think, and all the other continents had their giant prehistoric turtles, and there'd be fossil records. What's amazing is, let's play the video. Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah, look at that video. Look at how those are big.
Wow.
These are like bigger than golf carts. I mean, you could ride.
Oh, just wait until you can see the lady next to him.
Right. Okay, here we go. Take a look at the size of these. I mean, these are like small elephants,
Yes.
I do not remember elephants the size. I mean, I'm calling it an elephant.
Yeah,
Turtles the size.
it looks like elephant legs.
Yeah, it's like an elephant put a shell on.
You're right.
You know what it reminds me too of? There seems to be like a trait of gigantism, because I've seen photographs of people like with their house cat that's like bigger than them, or different types of animals that are like huge in this reality. And it also reminds me of that concept where North America is called Turtle Island. So, that whole concept about being on the back of a giant turtle. Now giant turtles are showing up in the reality.
And when you get to philosophy and science, often it's turtles all the way down. That's a reference to the fact. And when turtles would come up in the spring, they'd often have soil and green grass on their back. And so it looked to the native people like it's not such a stretch to imagine that we're on the back of a giant tortoise. Yeah. So to have these giant tortoises coming back, because this is a big Mandela effect for me. I don't know about you guys. I do not remember turtles the size of small elephants. Do you? Or
never?
Anybody? No.
Yeah,
I'd heard of a kitchen table when I was, the size of a kitchen table. One teacher, I think it was, but never seen anything like this. It's crazy.
I've swam with them in Hawaii, the tortoises. They're quite large, but nowhere near, maybe a third that size. It's a good thing they're vegetarian.
Right.
Yeah, sea turtles, right? Yeah, but this is just really, really amazing.
Wow,
and
350 pounds.
I was going to say that. Yeah, I think the ones we just saw, they've got to be more than that. They've got to be, because that's got to be like thousands of pounds. What we just witnessed on that video.
Yeah.
I was going to say some of the people that are here are guests of mine and may be new to this round, to the open tables here. And, one of the things that is extraordinary about what you do here is you do interpret these things in terms of the timelines that we're on, in terms of how reality is unfolding in ways that we would prefer. And one that really landed for me recently, you mentioned the dodo bird coming back. That is a classic. You'll go the way of the dodo bird. The fact that the dodo bird is now back is such a huge Mandela effect and sign that we're on the right timeline. Things that were iconic in terms of death and dying and going the way of the dodo bird are coming back. So that's the type of, frame or mindset or even truth bubble that you can put around these events. And I just love how you all do that here.
Including our very own Cynthia Sue Larson, I might add.
Oh, yeah. Right. Reported dead, but fortunately not dead. So
yeah,
none of goes away. Cynthia Sue Larson.
Yeah, so one thing to mention too about the dodo bird is that I don't know if it's actually back, but it has two close cousins that have entered the reality. And they've been finding all of this evidence that the dodo lived longer than when they thought it did. And I read recently that they found this big, all these dodo bird bones that were located someplace, I think in Madagascar, wherever they were from. So there's more and more evidence that the dodo has at least existed longer into the reality. And wouldn't that be a real shock to people if all of a sudden the dodo was discovered on one of those islands, remote islands type of thing? So
that would be huge. Yeah, I think we're seeing evidence in that direction, that those timelines are shifting, and that we do look for that. You're right. And going back to this turtle, just for one more thing to point out, it lives over 200 years. That's significant when we see something that's new to us, like turtles the size of golf carts or small cars or small elephants, because if they've been around at least 200 years for us to know they lived 200 years, then we should have heard about this. So it's quite startling.
Yes.
Okay, let's take a look at the next sponsor, please. Here we go. Number 3. This is the. This is so. I know it doesn't look real.
It's a character.
Okay. Yeah, what we're seeing on the right there, this is a bird. So this actually. Oh, we got someone else down here. Hello, Jerry.
Hey folks, how we doing? I do
buddy.
apologize for being fashionably late. Cynthia, Shane, Chris, Roger, a pleasure, sir.
Absolutely. Great to see you.
You too, sir. Again, my apologies. Why are we looking at Toothless the Dragon here? This thing is adorable.
Oh, you're just in time, Jerry. Love it. Yeah, well, that's what we're going to talk about. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, that's actually... Toothless is from How to Train Your Dragon, the animated movie. And that's what's there on the left. On the right is the actual ant creature that this looks like. It's, what is that? The great-eared nightjar? Yes. I've never seen this before. This is new to me.
Okay, could you explain to me what a nightjar is? Because I've never even heard of that before.
It's some kind of a bird found in Southeast Asia that is totally new to me. You're right. I've never heard of nightjar. I've never seen this. And I would remember something that looks that much like a dragon, even if we didn't have its doppelganger from some beautiful animated film. The fact that it looks so unusual would have been, people would have mentioned this, like, oh, that bird that looks like a dragon. So then you can really see the connection with reptiles and birds. It would have been brought up as a real oddity, but it's new to me.
So there is a beak. It's just really small, it looks like.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. You really have to get in there to see that. I see it now. Wow. Like, that's something else I've noticed about a lot of these mandanimals is the evolutionary point seems skewed. Like the white animal showing up in the forest. Like, that's evolutionarily wrong. A beak this short, that would make evolutionarily speaking, very little to no sense, in my opinion, because, I mean, what's the point of having such a small beak? I don't see a defensive nor a feeding purpose here, right?
It's like the purpose was to be cute, like it knew it was going to be in an animated show at some point. Your job is to be adorable.
Yeah. What a great job to have.
And what about you guys out there in chat? Have you guys ever seen or heard of a nightjar before? That is definitely adorable. Well, what other sponsors do we have this week? We do have a lot of information, like you said. Fire rainbow. Wow, look at this. One of the few types of halos formed by refraction of light in the plate-shaped ice crystals in the atmosphere. Only witnessed when the sun is at least 58 degrees above the horizon, and formed through ice crystals through which the light disassembles into constituent colors, needs to be hexagonal in shape. So have you guys ever witnessed one of these in real life?
No, I have
no. And I think for a lot of us, we're always searching for rainbow things, like rainbow mountains and rainbow rivers and rainbow geysers and blah, blah, blah. And there are other types of rainbow cloud formations like this too, but this one called the fire rainbow, I had never heard of it before. They say they're very rare, but I had never heard of it or seen that kind of a concept ever.
The closest for me would be an aurora borealis type effect, and that's relatively common, but it doesn't look like this.
Right.
And again, rainbows are like that golden color that we look for indications that we're moving in a good direction collectively with the timeline selections that we collectively are choosing. So that's why it's a good sponsor for us at IMEC.
Well, what's really interesting is coming from a UFO researcher background, right? We know the movie Fire in the Sky by Travis Walton. And all the 100 times I've typed that in chat or into search, I've never come up with a fire rainbow in the sky. I would think this would be something that would be at the top of the list, right?
Beautiful. Oh, I love your reasoning. That's a great point. So that shows us that this is kind of new to this timeline, right?
Right.
And doesn't it look like, too, when you turn on a gas stove and you have the flames come up in a circle? It's almost that same kind of a concept, except the flames are coming up in a rainbow arrangement. It's really beautiful.
And if you burn, like in a chemistry class, the Bunsen burner, you get some of the rainbow colors, and that's how you spot the chemicals that are at work. So I would think people would have noticed this too. You know, there would have been comments about this, as rare as it is. If it's a thing, people would have talked about it.
Absolutely. Very strange indeed. Folks, sponsor number 4, the fire rainbow. Something that's new, at least to us. Next sponsor on the list, folks, we have the loach fish. What do we got here, folks? What am I looking at, guys?
Well, this is one of those Lazarus animals, basically. When we talk about that word, is actually used by scientists. They use the word Lazarus, meaning risen from the dead. That means that an extinct animal is back. In this case, it was feared to be extinct for nearly half a century, which isn't that long in the scheme of things. We've had animals that have been extinct longer come back. But the fact is, this one did come back. I think it's interesting that it showed up in the Batman River in Turkey. I didn't know there was a Batman River either.
Cue the Batman intro.
Batman.
It doesn't look like a Batman. I'm not sure why it's named that.
Well, the river, it was found in the Batman River. And the thing, too, is like when I was looking into this, it's not like, oh, they haven't spotted it in 1974 because they really weren't looking for it. They were looking for it like all the time. These biologists were like constantly setting out nets and trying to find whatever, you know, biodiversity was in the rivers. And then boom, they show up. So it's not like scientists were not looking for them. They were looking for them. So.
And people that, yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, because it wasn't something that was just like lack of interest or nobody there. You're right.
Well, what I find intriguing is what you pointed out a moment ago, Cynthia, is that it is a Lazarus animal. And that's something we have tracked. And I personally have tracked for quite a long time, is these Lazarus animals that have been showing up in droves. I understand maybe 1 or 2 a year. Like, I get that. But we've been finding these in 5, 10, 15 a year minimum, where we've had a lot of these Lazarus creatures just pop up back on the timeline. Or as Chris says, maybe we're popping onto their timeline, right?
Yeah, that whole concept where when we raise our frequency, like we actually vibrate into higher timelines where there's more diversity. There's just more and more animals. I'm finding like famous people like have children that I always thought never had children. There's just more and more data, so to speak, that is in that timeline. So it's a good sign when we start to see these type of things manifest.
It is. And it's also, before the show started, back in the green room, some of us were talking about the Hopi prophecy rock and how some of the stories and predictions of from thousands of years ago are that when you get to that place where you're choosing between worlds and the worlds are kind of splitting apart and there's one path that goes through, that's the one where you're going to see animals that were long extinct coming back. We're doing that. So it's happening.
Wow, that's awesome.
I think the other thing that's inspirational is that there are entire organic living creatures. You know, they're not some kind of a machine or something. This is, you know, divine nature expressing itself on this timeline in new ways. So that inspires me as well as we're moving in the right direction.
And they're beautiful too. A lot of these new animals, so colorful.
New levels of beauty, yeah.
That's
I
why we like to
fully
start.
agree.
We like
Or
to
golden
honor
like
these.
this one.
Yeah, right.
So
It's
we have a
also,
golden Lazarus animal. There's something we don't get very often.
Yeah, he looks kind of golden, doesn't he? Yeah.
Yes.
Swordfish. Yeah.
Because we're on that golden timeline, regardless of how strange it may look right now, to say the least, right? Next up on the list, please, ma'am, we have okay, now this thing here is kind of a throwback to another one that we've had before. I don't know if you guys remember, those who've been around a while might remember the blanket octopus. Well, here's a hot pink blanket octopus. So not only do we have a strange creature, but a strange creature with an even more strange color. What do you guys got on this one?
We have a video we can play. But what was interesting is when we talked about the other pink blanket octopus from the previous open tables, it was like really, really rare. And now all of a sudden someone else spotted someone on the barrier reef. I don't know if it's the same blanket octopus. I don't think so. So what was like very, very rare are starting to become like, maybe they're not so as rare as we think.
Or we're seeing more and more of this population grow onto the timeline.
It's amazing looking.
Yeah, it's a beautiful.
And when you look at it, you don't see the normal arms, right? That you would see on an
right.
And then when we
I
go
wouldn't
back,
know that was an octopus.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So if you look at the slide on the right on the bottom, it shows like a diagram of how the arms work. So you've got the two.
Looks
on
like a
either
spider,
side.
kind of.
It does, right? And then the other arms are within the blanket itself.
So you can see the 8 that normally they would have. They're just integrated in different ways.
Exactly.
Beautiful.
Definitely a strange version of an octopus for sure. Something you don't normally see every day. And that is another true sign of a Mandela effect, right, guys?
Right. So true.
All right, folks, this is quite an amazing creature indeed. What else do we have on our list? Sponsor number 7, a white whale and a Dalmatian whale. So both of these concepts are new to me. Who's our whale expert today?
I don't know who the whale expert is, but I thought it was funny that they're best buds. Like they're always seen together. We've talked about white whales before, like in other open tables. The whole concept of dolphins, how dolphins are all these different colors. There's yellow dolphins. This is a Dalmatian dolphin. There's like at least 3 other types of dolphins that I had never heard about before. So again, just more diversity. We're like, wow, I just thought dolphins were like what do they call it? The Fraser dolphin, the gray one. I thought that's all there was. And like, wow, there's a whole other world of dolphins out there.
Right. The bottlenose, known as Patches, suffers from leucism. So this is something else we've seen a whole lot amongst our animals here. Not albinism. Albinism requires red eyes and very specific features. Leucism is where they just turn white. Is that correct, guys?
Yeah, I think that's right. And sometimes with leucism, the eye color doesn't need to be that pink color that you often get with albinism. So it's different. Yeah. And the thing about the white color, I want to make sure to mention, it reminds me of that white buffalo calf legend of the indigenous people on the North American continent, where the white buffalo calf returns, which it has, and then the other buffalo colors come back too. And it's really representative of all the colors coming back, people coming together again. Again, it's extremely important that this is happening. And we're seeing it with not just the buffalo, but with these other animals as well.
What I find really interesting about that, Cynthia, is we've also just entered into, at least sometime recently, the age of Aquarius, both astronomically speaking and by most of the calendars. We've entered this new age, and we've seen a change in the social order for sure. And this here is just yet another change that we're seeing. As you said, these colored animals started to come back as we were approached and crossed over this precipice of this new age, for lack of better terms, right?
That's right. Yeah, it's I think it's good to keep in mind that we're made for these times, we can keep staying in an optimistic, positive stance, even regardless what seems to be happening.
You know, the other thing too is that these manned animals, they map over to what we're experiencing in the human race, you know, an increasing in diversity. And our challenge then becomes inclusivity. How do we create, you know, unity through diversity? And, you know, the human race is diversifying like never before. You know, genders are very flexible now. So it's like, how do we, you know, recognize these different aspects of the human race? We're seeing it in the animal family, and to a certain extent, it looks like they're leading the way and showing us how, you know, these unique and divine and beautiful creatures can be included in the diversity. So I really like that.
Yeah, and look, they're getting along. Like I said, they're like best buds. So they're from other parts of the ocean, but they like each other. They hang out together. So
we can always learn lessons from nature. I think that's one of the biggest things that's up for us.
And that, sir, is exactly what I was thinking of a way to try to express. I could not agree more. It definitely seems to be such analogous to the social order that we are looking at today, and showing that we do need to get along a little more with others around us of different type. I definitely would agree with that, Mr. Marsh.
Absolutely.
Soul Spa University in the chat says, yeah, who knows what gender the mandaminals are choosing? That's a good That's great. Whatever they want, right?
Whatever helps reach their highest and best potential, right?
There you go.
So we've got creatures here that not only are rarely seen interacting together, but are actually really good friends. Very amazing. And that's going to end our sponsors for this week's episode. Ladies and gentlemen, we do have the quick updates. Miss Cynthia Sue Larson, how have you been doing this month, ma'am?
Awesome. So I published my regular monthly newsletter. If people don't subscribe to it, please do. Just comes out once a month. I've been publishing it more than 21 years now. So it's been going more than 2 decades every month. This month I published Fall in Love with Being Alive. And in that I include all of the most recent reality shift stories and interviews that I've done. I did one recently with Desta Barnaby. She's the co-author with Grant Cameron on contact modalities, and also the Isness channel on YouTube's talking about basically that there's a gift in everything, that you can actually find silver linings, and often there can be a deeper meaning to things if you look and you keep stepping back from problems and are willing to embrace that. So there's lots of material in that newsletter. But something from IMEC I want to make sure that we definitely bring up is that we are going to be following through with our commitment. Probably we were going to mention it again, but I want to say it right now. We did make a commitment to basically give some of our proceeds that were donated to us through the Patreon donations in the month of December, and that will be going to learntherisk.org in honor of Brandy Vaughn. And so, yes, thank you. So we do have a Patreon, and you can support us. And there are lots of ways to support us. You can also email us through our website, which is imec.world. And there's going to be a lot more content coming out for the Patreons. So I think that's something to stay tuned. You'll get our updates in our emails when you subscribe through imec.world. And that's it. I'm going to keep it short so we have time for our guests. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Cynthia. As she said, guys, make sure you go over and check out the Patreon. And I'm sure Cynthia will continue to keep us abreast as we move forward with the donation to learntherisk.org. Again, learntherisk.org. I cannot stress how important it is for you guys to learn the risks around you. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, myself, I have been quite a busy little wolf this month. Lots of shows going on over at the rippinrabbithole.com, where you can always find me. RIPONRABBITHOLE.com. Also on the Dark Wolves Den Show YouTube channel, as we are carrying through our State of Mystery series through the paranormal that we discuss every week over there. As we go through each state in the union and the different cryptid creatures, ghosts, and things of the like that happen to be in every state. Plus, we are gearing up for a brand new refresh of the Freedom Flame series coming up in February. So we got a whole lot going on over there, guys. Make sure you check us out. We're there twice a week, every week, just for you. Plus, here with IMEC. And with IMEC, of course, we're going places together, guys. So glad to be here. Thank you, guys. Now, Shane Robinson, how are you doing, my friend?
Man, I am doing awesome. And I've just been really focusing on music right now. I just uploaded a new tune last night to the channel, so you guys can go over and check that out at Unbiased and on the Fence YouTube channel. Or you can just find me on uotf.net. That's the website, and you can contact me through there. That's pretty much it for me.
All right. Thank you, Shane. That was, I think, the shortest one yet. We got to learn how to do it like Shane. He just bam, 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 done, right? Mr. Christopher Anatra, glad to see you again, my friend, this month. How have you been?
I've been pretty good. I first want to say happy birthday to Cynthia. 111.
Wow. Yay.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, I agree. Happy birthday, Cynthia. I forgot all about that.
Yeah, and congratulations, Jerry, again on your book and your book launch.
I
That's
appreciate
awesome.
it, sir, very much.
Yeah, that's great. So for myself, my hair's been getting longer. And I actually, what's interesting is like, you talk about timelines. I think you can change timelines by doing something like changing your look, rearranging your bedroom furniture. Anything like that has the potential to actually change a timeline. So I've been doing all these things for myself personally too, and change and improve my timelines. But I wanted to mention, I had a really good birthday adventure. So the end of December is my birthday. And I wound up going to Kansas of all places. And I do this thing where for my birthday, I'll communicate with my higher self and get like a message about where I should go. So for this year, it was like in the United States. So I'm like, oh, United States, that's pretty good. Should it be northern, southern United States, eastern or western? And I was getting nothing. Like none of those? Like where am I supposed to go? And I'm like, could it be the center? And it was like, I got the yes answer to the center. What's in the center? Kansas. So I'm like, am I supposed to go to Kansas? And it turned out that's where I was supposed to go. So I did this road trip down to Kansas. And Heather, our producer, has a few pictures. I want to just call up the first one, which is the one of the portal. And what I'm going to do is, so this was in Kansas. So looking at a map, I was going through different areas where I should visit. And this one place stood out at me in Kansas called Monument of the Rocks. And I knew on my birthday I had to visit this place. And I'm going to create a video and I'm going to create more information about this and like what a portal is, how it works. Because portals have all different concepts. There could be portal dates, for example, like 222222 could be a portal because it's a special kind of a date. It could be an organic portal. It could be an inorganic portal, etc. So I want to explain what this portal is. In the rock formations and what's under them, there's a concept called a control room. And I want to talk about what that concept actually means and what kind of control room that was. So that was one thing. And then just by synchronicity, like total synchronicity, I was talking to someone who's, she was a author of Kansas history and so forth, because one of the places I was staying, I wanted to like get more historical. So someone hooked me up with her and her husband gets on the phone, having a phone conversation. Her husband gets on the phone and her husband's like, Chris, by the way, have you ever heard of astronaut Virgil Gus Grissom? And I'm like, as a matter of fact, I have. And because he's like, if you come to Kansas, you have to come to the Cosmosphere. I'm like, what's the Cosmosphere? And okay, this is one of the pictures I took there. So the Cosmosphere, what they did is they actually went into the Atlantic Ocean and they pulled up Liberty Bell 7, which is what Gus Grissom's capsule was when he was a Mercury astronaut and he orbited the Earth. So they actually took it, they got it from the bottom of the ocean, they brought it back up, they literally cleaned it, they said bolt by bolt and put it back together. And I have to say, like I saw that, I actually saw the Liberty Bell. And you know, we talk about everything as energy, frequency, and vibration. That thing has the frequency of Gus Grissom. I'm going to talk more about that too, but it was so synchronistic about, you know, me finding this and going there and I actually had an experience with Gus Grissom. I'll tell everybody about in a future video. And then one last thing I just want to call up. You can't go to Kansas without experiencing the Wizard of Oz, right? So
Right.
I went to the Oz Museum.
Oh my gosh.
And there I am
Love
with
it.
the Scarecrow. It was a lot of fun. And the whole concept of what are realities? Could there be a reality like the Land of Oz? Could that be a completely made up story? Or could there be more to it, to this concept that there are other realities running besides ours? Even the Norse talk about the 9 worlds of the Norse, Asgard, Midgard, etc. So yeah, so these are some of my adventures, and I'm gonna I'm in the process of documenting them and creating more content about what all they mean. Sorry for taking up so much time, but I'm really excited about it. So
It's giving me goosebumps.
Yeah.
It's
Did he
awesome.
have a pistol, the Scarecrow?
that's a great point, because there could be somebody could create an entire episode just on Wizard of Oz Mandela effects.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because I don't remember the Scarecrow carrying a gun, right? And then in this reality, there's at least one scene where he has a pistol. He has like a Colt revolver. So that's new for me.
Good thing he didn't know how to use it, or the movie would have been over right away, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Especially
I
since
don't
he
know.
didn't have
That's
a
kind of
brain.
scary either way. Like, even if he did know how to use it, I think that might be whether he did or not. I mean, not knowing how to use it might be a little more dangerous than whether he did, right?
Right. Give her one with no brains a gun. I know.
Right. I think I know some people like Scarecrow. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, moving along, we have a very special guest with us here today, folks. That is Mr. Roger Marsh. How was your month, Mr. Roger, by the way?
Hey, getting the new year started off really well, especially being here with all of you. So how good can it get is what I say. Thank you.
Man, I think I've heard that before. Those are definitely good words to live by for sure. Have we introduced Mr. Marsh formally yet?
You get the honors for that, Jerry.
I am so glad I arrived on time. Once again, I do apologize to you guys and the chat for being slightly fashionably late. Before we do get into this here amazing book, as we all have a copy of, a wonderful book, by the way, Mr. Marsh. I really enjoyed reading this. I want to touch on the chat real quick. Melinda Iverson in, Alva Yarder, Soul Spa, Natalie Butler, all have wished Cynthia a very happy belated birthday. So
Thank you.
from our chat over here to you, they wanted to make sure that you had a great time. Happy birthday in this reality, says Soul Spa, for instance. There we go. So yes, I hope you did have a great time on your birthday, Cynthia.
Yes.
Perfect.
Low key, but good. Yeah.
All right, folks. Speaking of having a great time, we're going to have a great time with our guest, Roger Kenneth Marsh. He is a committed human being to evolving humanity in a more peaceful, joyful, and love-based state. Contributing to this mission, he is the author of such books as Next Gen Human, a book that I've heard about before in the Truther circles more than once, by the way. A Modern Age Path to Fulfillment is the subtitle of that book. Founder of the Institute for Divine Energy Alignment and Living, with the acronym IDEAL. Very smart. I like that acronym too. I have a couple ideals, right? 501c3 nonprofit organization supporting our shift from fear to love. And I wanted to touch on this. Today's society, we see fear being the number one thing that's pushed by our mainstream media, to say the least. So definitely a very fitting person to have on in this time, no doubt. A facilitator and trainer with Integral Transformative Practice International, another 501c3 positive, supporting positive evolution in body, mind, heart, and soul. A heart math coach. Heart math is something that I have enjoyed for many years. They do amazing work over there. For those who have not looked into that, definitely check out Heart Math. But a heart math coach providing tools and techniques to access heart-based intelligence. A leadership coach with his company Beyond Belief LLC, opening hearts and minds of leaders around the world. With a Bachelor of Science in Engineering and a Master's in Business Administration, he brings a grounded and pragmatic approach to the further developments of human capacities. It is my honor and pleasure to welcome to the round table, folks, Mr. Roger Marsh. Welcome, sir.
Thank you so much, Jerry. I mean, no one does it like you do. That is extraordinary. I want to listen to that again at some point. It's so much fun the way you deliver your messages in the introduction. So thank you all again for having me here. It's really such a pleasure. I've been inspired by your work from the very beginning. You know, I was tracking Cynthia when she showed up at a local Institute of Noetic Sciences meeting in Walnut Creek, California. And I was introduced to her work years ago, read her book, Reality Shifts, and was very impressed with her science background, really bringing the physics in, which was something that resonated with me as a, you know, with an engineering degree, looking at what is the science of consciousness. And that's really what the Institute of Noetic Sciences is all about. And I got tapped into what Cynthia was up to when she introduced the first International Mandela Effect Conference that was taking place. I thought, wow, this is bold. This is exciting. You know, really cool how you're all out there on the evolutionary edge of humanity and showing the way with huge hearts and lots of love. So for me, that's really what it's all about. And I'm just super happy to be here and be in dialogue with all of you. It's a great pleasure.
Well, I know about them. You're definitely going to make us blush over here.
Having fun along the way, which is so important. Once you lose your sense of humor, you're really screwed, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you can't laugh at yourself, who can you laugh at, right?
That's it.
So true.
But what is truth? What is a truth bubble, Roger?
Well, we're going to get into it. Maybe we can just jump to the next slide and I can warm ourselves up to that. You know, this slide here is just a little bit of a journey for me. And in 2009, I wrote this book that was, you know, divinely downloading through me called Next Gen Human. And it was really capturing my life up to that point and the evolutionary journey that I was on and really experiencing with other people and seeing that there's a big cosmic plan that's unfolding here for humanity. So for me, it was the next generation human that's showing up on the planet right now, which is very love-based, very connected to nature, to our environment, to other humans, to everything, and waking up into that divine reality. And that's what that book was about. I based it on Joseph Campbell's Hero's Journey, you know, which is not an easy journey to take. There's a lot of challenges on that path. It's a transformational journey like none other. And that book, you know, I lived into it. It basically was my blueprint since 2009. Once I released it, I've been growing into the truth of that book for me over the past 12 years. And then another message was wanting to come through, and a lot of different messages. I had a hard time selecting my second book title. It took 12 years before finally this one landed for me a couple of years ago and said, this is the one you need to write now. And it was TruthBubble, navigating realms of reality in our societal shift from fear to love, to really serve that shift that we're going through right now. The shift from fear, which, as you said, Jerry, is everywhere on our planet right now. It's an extraordinary amount of fear that's being propagated and existing. It's almost, people are becoming numb to it. Fear is everywhere and love is the opportunity. And then this whole thing about realms of reality is all about timelines. It's really what the Mandela effect for me is pointing us towards as we are awakening in these realms and becoming the co-creators of our destiny. So TruthBubble is all about that. And from there, we can just go to the next slide. That gives you a little bit of background on the books.
Copies up.
I know what you mean when you say it's divinely given. I wrote a book myself, as Chris mentioned earlier, but I didn't write the book. I was the tool which wrote it into physical form, but I did not write that story. That story was given me by universe, so I can definitely understand what you're saying there. What quote do we have here on the screen, Roger?
Well, this was a rabbi that apparently lived in the 3rd century who said, we do not see things as they are, we see them as we are. And when I saw that, I put that right up front in my book, TruthBubble, because that captures it in a nutshell. You know, here was this rabbi in the 3rd century, you know, speaking some real fine wisdom, helping us see that we are, the filter through which we experience our realities. And very much so, it's not reality that's out there, it's the reality that's in here that we're experiencing. So I just wanted to bring that forward. And I don't know, have you, any of you, seen that quote before reading TruthBubble? Is it something that's been around? Because I hadn't, but now I have, of course, seen it in a few other places.
Before TruthBubble, I personally had not ever been made aware of this particular quote. How about the rest of you guys?
I don't think I would have understood it like now before, so.
I think I may have seen it. So it's not a Mandela effect for me, but it's a deeply significant quote. It's one of the most, anything that brings us to be aware of the assumption that we think we know who we are, then we're on track. So this one goes straight home with that. Love it.
Yeah.
Might have to borrow this for one of my quote of the days on the show.
Notice I didn't try to say his name, Rabbi Shemuel ben Nachmani. It's a pretty complex name, but I'm sure he would be happy for us to be bringing his wisdom forward all these hundreds of years later. Let's go to the next slide.
A sign of true wisdom indeed.
Here we can get into what is a truth bubble. I set out right up front to define what this concept is. And I've heard on this channel, all of you have been talking about reality bubbles. And whenever I heard that, I'm like, yes, that's at least similar to a truth bubble, these reality bubbles. And then Chris, you've done some work, and so Cynthia, have you, on the pocket universes. What is a pocket universe? And perhaps we're living in one right now, and then can enter into different pocket universes within pocket universes. These nested kind of Russian doll type concepts. And so a truth bubble for me, really, I try to ground things in personal experience. As a teacher of transformational practices, I'm always turning people towards themselves. What's their truth? What's their experience? And so this is really grounded in that kind of a perspective. But it's your personal, first and foremost, it's your personal experience of reality, which no one else is having. You're having a unique experience of reality, no matter what. Even if you're standing right next to somebody, they're next to you, they won't be seeing the same thing you're seeing. So we are at the center of our own universe, and it's a very personal experience. It's formed by the beliefs, the worldview, or mindset. These are all words that can be used for me, that I use kind of interchangeably. Worldviews, mindsets that create the world one lives inside. The context is decisive, is a word that, as a statement that I'd like to say. What's the frame or the context you're putting around something will then define what that something is for you. So those are worldviews or mindsets. It's one's personal truth of things. We all have our personal truth of things based upon what? Mostly our experience in living our lives. And so people here like us and others, watching this, have Mandela effect experiences. So this is a truth for us. The Mandela effect exists for us, and clearly it doesn't exist for other people. But what I argue is that just because there's a reality for one person doesn't mean it doesn't exist for others, and is very real. So it's our personal truth of things based upon experience. And of course, we justify these experiences by collecting data and opinions of others. And this is where science kind of both is helpful and can be challenging, because who's got the right science, right? Well, I've got my science to support my truth bubble, and somebody else has their science to support the opposite truth bubble. So, I just said often it's justified by these data and opinions of others to support it. And then in the end, I just wanted to add that it is ultimately one option of reality among truly an infinite number of possibilities. So I'll stop there if others have any comments about what's there and how it kind of overlaps with the Mandela effect.
Yeah, I have something I wanted to, because as soon as you started talking about this, and for me, listening to your book, by the way, I loved how you narrated your own book. That was
Thank you.
It really makes you get more into it. So good job with that. And you did it really well. When I think about these bubbles too, I think about how it's been shown to us in the world of art. So some people remember like statues of like a dragon holding like an orb or a bubble. Or there's Leonardo da Vinci's Salvador Mundi painting where the Christ is holding out like a bubble, like, come look at my world, look at my worldview, look at my truth bubble. Would you like to enter that? So what you're saying, I think, is also backed up by the world of art because it's being expressed that way as well.
I
And
love
also
that.
Dragon with Pearl, you'll see it holding up. It's like a reality or a truth bubble also.
Yes.
There's so much I don't want to ruin just yet. Go ahead, Shane.
I was going to say, Benjamin in the chat had a question. If we see glitches, does that mean we have matrix code reading problems?
Interesting. Well, I think glitches is a truth bubble. You could frame it in different ways. A glitch may be a synchronistic wink, that you're going in the right direction. So you may actually have no reading problems. The fact that you saw the quote unquote glitch or wink to me would mean you're reading the matrix. You got it. That's how I would say it.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel
Agreed.
too. It's almost like you went through a part of your existence where your frequency may have gone up really high and you experience glitches and you come back down a little bit. Because that's normal too. Like as we progress, it's normal to like grow and advance in our frequency. And it's normal to come back down a little bit. And then you go back up a little bit. But as long as the chart's still in the up direction, you're doing good. So
one thing about this here and about this book is it said, I don't want to give away too much too quick because there's so much in this book. And it was really, really enjoyable to read. Definitely a mindset change if you're willing to take the information in. But what helped me a lot is I have a major issue with personal Mandela effects. And I've said this before, in my opinion, Mandela effects are usually agreed upon by large groups of people opposed to having a personal experience. Now, alternate to that, I've had personal Mandela effect experiences, so it's really been hard for me to reconcile these two truths. And in this book, and what we're going to get into through this book, for those who have an issue with the personal Mandela effects, it is really something that is going to make a lot more sense, I hope, by the time we get to the end of this. If not, then definitely check out the book because it makes a lot more sense in there.
That's great, Jerry.
But absolutely has helped me a lot in understanding the concept of a personal ME. But as we go forward, I'm sure that will continue to become more true for you guys.
We can touch base on that. Again, it's like these nested realities. And as an individual, you have a reality that you're inside of, and there'll be certain things that are true for you that may not be true for anybody else. And then the further out you go, we might actually have, a Mandela effect for a large majority or a truth bubble or a reality shift for a large majority of humanity. So that's a bigger kind of collective shift or truth bubble. But certainly the personal realities, and as a big premise of my book is that those are honored and those are as real as anything and perhaps more real for the individual that's experiencing them. So all of that's possible.
Absolutely.
Let's go to the next slide. We can move along here and see what's next now that we kind of have our foundation there. So this is now getting into the book itself. There's 10 chapters, and the way it's kind of outlined is the first part is laying some foundation around this concept of a truth bubble, looking at it kind of from different angles. And then the second half of the book is really about practice. I like to say that I major in practice because once you know what something is or perhaps how it works, the question is, what do I do about this? How do I live into this? What are my day-to-day choices and actions that I can take that help me live into this, new reality that's unfolding? So that's the second half of the book. And we'll get into that a little bit because there's, of course, things that we can do moment to moment. Many of the things all of you here in the open tables have been talking about. So this one here is chapter 1. And I just started where we start, which is, we're born into life and it's the water we swim in. We have parents and family and, all of these experiences, the education system that we're, raised in. And this is all part of domestication. We become domesticated into the tribe, the human family that we were born into. And this creates default, often invisible because they happened to us when we were young. There's things that happened when we were in the womb. And, you can go even before that to identify, shaping influences on your life. But we can at least go back to the womb and the birth experience. The work of Stan Groff is extraordinary in the space of, what birth actually does to the human being and how that is lived out for the rest of our lives, whether it was traumatic or not. So these things are there and they create default, often invisible, hidden truth bubbles for each person. So we need to know, what water are we swimming in? What was my family upbringing like? What was my dad like? What was my mom like? Were they there at all? What school did I go to? Did I feel honored and loved, or did I feel ostracized and bullied? All of these things are co-creating, and it's a default truth bubble. So this is where I start, so we can really wake up to these things that are already running and creating our life experience. So thoughts on that?
Oh, that's brilliant. I love it. I think this gets often taken for granted. People don't realize, unless they've traveled the world, they don't know how different things are. I was fortunate when I was growing up. My experience was to see, my father wanted us to visit places that had never seen white people or people from the Western world. So I was visiting with headhunters and, people who did not speak English. They did not speak French, So my world journey was extraordinary. I got to see, thanks to my father and my family, amazing things. And I realized as I was growing up, that most people do not have that. And they think there's an assumption often that the whole world is either the way we have been told it is based on mainstream media or some narrative. Unless they've gone there, they don't know just how different things can be.
Yeah, I wanted to add to that concept too, is the water we swim in, like a fish, doesn't really know that it's in water. That's the environment that it's alive in. And I think about these experiences that we have as like filters that we put on our worldview. So the more filters that we have, the more different lenses that we're looking through, that's distorting what the truth of reality is. So if you can remove those filters, then you can start to see like even more and more and more of what reality actually is. A lot of times too, I talk, like when I talk and I give my presentations, I liken things to like computers and software and so forth. So it's almost like you've got code in there that maybe was given to you by your parents or whatever DNA you've inherited. And there could be a time when we can easily just start to remove those filters. And then once we remove them, we learn about them, and then we could help other people remove them as well, so they can see a better truth bubble.
Yeah.
So if I'm understanding this truth bubble concept right so far, for instance, I am a white male, 41 years old. So for me, the truth is I'm white. My personal truth is I'm a male, which I share with everyone else that's male. I'm a 41-year-old. I share that with all the people that are 41 years old. So these are both personal and truth bubbles. Would that be correct?
Yeah, those are some of the really obvious kind of default truth bubbles that we live in. That same with me, as a white male living in the United States, born in Livermore, California, stuff like that. These things, affected and are affecting my reality. And then there's of course a lot more subtle items, things that happen to us that we don't even remember. Like do you remember being born? Yet there's a lot of evidence for we're conscious beings coming into the world during that, what's frankly a struggle through the birth canal of suffocation and constriction. And then we're popped out into something that we had no idea was on the other side of that blissful state. So, all of those things are affecting our truth bubbles. So you're right on it, Jerry. We all have those things that are obvious. We have these parents, we have this family of origin, we have this sexual identity, whatever it is. Those are default truth bubbles, yes.
So anything that would be labeled upon us, if we accept that label per se, that would be a truth bubble for us. Would that be a good understanding of that?
Right. Yeah, exactly. I'm looking at Shane, I'm looking at you because, on your website, you tell your personal story. And I think to a certain extent, I think it was 2017 when you really had this awakening. And I think that what that was, you certainly need to speak to it yourself, but it seemed to me you were shedding a lot of the old belief systems, a lot of the kind of the way you had been raised and the things that you saw the world through. And you're like, wait a minute, these things aren't really working anymore. This isn't really this isn't the truth for me anymore. And that set you on a whole new journey. Would you say that's true?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's like, you have things that make sense to you. They've been a part of your experience and they don't align with what you've been told. So you have to go back to the drawing board. That's why the Mandela effect was so powerful for me. I had to totally go back to the drawing board with that. I'm like, wait a minute, this shouldn't be able to happen. So if something's wrong, let's clear this off and figure out what it is. And And I've always been excited approaching things like that, testing the most difficult of problems, with any kind of worldview or whatever. I just go right to the heart of it. Well, what's the toughest thing with this? And if we can't get beyond that, then there's no need to spend a lot of time trying to figure out the other stuff. So it's really our own experience at the end of the day,
Well, that's really cool. See, because some of the things that you have been raised with and learned didn't serve you and you were letting that go. But then this example of your kind of pattern of going right to the toughest element that has been true for you in your life, and it's serving you now. So you kept that as a truth bubble for you. I can go to the toughest part and kind of, if I can solve that, then move forward from there. So that's a truth bubble that has served you. You didn't let that go.
Right, absolutely. And I can share that with other people that have trouble with, I don't know, dealing with fear or something. A lot of times if you go right after the issue, you'll see there's nothing to be afraid of anyway, right? It's just sometimes we worry and we don't go look, what was that noise, and we'll sit worried that somebody's breaking in or there's a monster in the other room. And, and I'm the kind of guy that's like, let's go see, what I mean? Oh, it's just the branch hitting the window or something,
That's brilliant. I love that courage. So we can move to the next slide. This is kind of where we start. And that's where I start the book, the water that we're swimming in. And then in chapter 2, I go into this exploration of what is truth? What's our source of truth? How do we know what truth is? Truth is a very slippery word. And as I was, building this case, that it's unique to each person. And so that's what I say. Truth is a personal experience. And when it's not a personal experience, when you don't have the personal experience of something being true for you, it gets hard to know what actually is true. It gets a lot more difficult to know what is and is not true. And so we start relying on, other people's opinions. We start relying on data that comes from somewhere. And then, of course, we have to start swimming in this place of trust and integrity and honesty. Can I trust this person? I have not had this experience before. Let's say, for example, ETs. I have not had a personal experience with an extraterrestrial or even a craft. I would love to have that experience, but I have not. And so, but I'm fascinated by the topic, and I've read tons of books and watched tons of shows on this. And I trust the people, even people in my own family that have seen these things and friends. And I know they're not lying to me. I know they saw what they saw, experienced what they experienced. And so I can affirm that reality of extraterrestrials and UFOs as true in the universe somewhere, but not in my truth bubble right now. It's just not there right now, but I don't deny its existence because I have, trustworthy relationships that are reporting to me it's possible and does happen. So that's an example of, as we get outside of our personal experiences of something, how do we know something's true? And there's so much information in the world today that's being pummeled into us from outside sources. And we just don't know if it's true or not. It's very difficult to know. And so trust, integrity, honesty, and these real relationships, authentic trust-based relationships are essential. I'll stop there and we can see what other thoughts might be coming up.
Oh, I love it.
Go ahead, Cynthia.
Well, I think you're hitting the nail on the head. I think this is the questions of our time. And I love to also stay with honesty, integrity, and love. Those are my guiding stars when I feel like that's when I can trust and put my faith in someone or something, even if I don't know them. If I feel that they're being authentic, that they're in their own integrity, that they have honesty, and I can feel love, then I'll take what they're saying is true for them and honor it also. But it's hard to honor it if I feel like they're not if they're not at least showing up with honesty, integrity, and love. If they don't have that, then it's really tough. So I think it's really brilliant that you're explaining it that way.
Shane?
No, I didn't have anything to add to it.
Chris?
Yeah, I was going to add, this will be an interesting relationship, but if you believe in angels, there's the concept of a fallen angel. So how do you bring a fallen angel, convert them back to the light? Well, the answer is you show them the truth, but you show them the many angles of truth, because they might have believed something that was truth, but only from a particular viewpoint. But then when they could see all the many angles of truth, they're like, oh, that's why that happened, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, getting to the source of truth, and then understanding that there's more than one truth. There's different ways of looking at it. You begin to see the wisdom of how much your truth bubble can just, it's not like a one-time thing. It can keep getting enhanced and enhanced and enhanced to get better and better and better.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Over here in the chat, Melinda Iverson in says, honoring what's true for someone else is a challenge for many. And that's what I was referencing a moment ago when I said the personal Mandela effects. This book really helped me understand that concept that someone else's truth may not necessarily be my truth. Like, Roger, can I make you change a personal truth of yours with my truth?
You can't make a person do anything, but like Christopher was saying, you can show them different perspectives and then they choose to change.
Like I think you used in the book mustard. If I like mustard, I think it's the best thing ever made by man. And you hate mustard, no matter what I say, do, or no matter what I can accomplish, there's no way I'm going to make you like mustard, correct?
Yeah, exactly. And I did write about that experience with my significant other, where, you know, I was sharing seafood with her. She doesn't like seafood. And, you know, for me, it's delicious. It's amazing. There's this, you know, grilled piece of Chilean sea bass, which I've enjoyed in the past, and she will taste it and hate it, hate it, hate it. And I just can't imagine. So that's a default truth bubble for her. We all have our default truth bubbles that are real easy to see in the world of foods. And I start with that example to show, you know, we have our preferences, we have our truths. Is it true that broccoli is good? Is it true that broccoli is bad? You know, that's personal truth.
Right.
It's personal truth. Some people love it, some people don't like it. So why is that? And where does that come from? That's another aspect of the inquiry. Why do some people love broccoli, but others hate it? That's an innate truth for people. But we never ask, why is that? And where does that come from? And might that extend out to other truths and experiences? Not just food, we can see it there. But what about experiences of God, experiences of multiple timelines, experiences of ETs? You know, it's a personal experience, just like your preference for food is. That's one of my theses there, one of my hypotheses. We can extend it out. So
But
mustard,
you could take it as like a taste or a flavor of life. I
that's
mean,
right. Good way.
we all have our own individual fingerprints and irises and retinal. You know, we can see that none of them are exactly the same. So I don't know why we would expect everyone's truth bubble to be exactly the same, right?
Absolutely.
It's like pixels in a beautiful picture.
I love that. Flavors of life, taste of life. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. And so we'll get into a little bit about what I call a later chapter, Worlds Collide, where there are opposing truth bubbles, and how do you navigate those things? Because that is what we're dealing with on the planet today, and have been for eons, frankly. Cool. Let's go to the next slide here. I think there's a little detail on this maybe. Yeah. So here I just show in the book, I just created a simple model trying to show how, you know, we can think of this as concentric circles with the human being or ourselves right at the center of our universe. You know, we're the center of the universe that is personal to us. And then, you know, immediately we're filtering energy. Everything is energy. We know from physics we're surrounded by energy, and we're filtering those energy patterns through our five senses. You know, the light waves, the sound waves, heat waves, all of these things. We, you know, navigate our world, and those become truths for us. You know, and it is true for us. And we do have different. Even some people are colorblind. I talk about that. So the color blue or green may not exist for them. Does that mean blue or green doesn't exist in the world? It does for me, but it doesn't for them. So literally for them, it doesn't exist. But they can listen to me and say, I see this thing called blue or green. And how do you describe a color, you know, to someone who can't see it? It's really literally not in their world. So that's the center. And then we can move out to things like, oh, I eat a piece of broccoli. Level 2 here is just you naturally like or don't like something. It's just your default. It's kind of your intrinsic experience of life. And, you know, you can't force, like, I really want to love broccoli, but I can't. So it's a naturally arising thought and feeling that I don't like broccoli. I do like it, actually, but there are foods that I don't like, you know?
I
So
used
then
to not like it, now I do. So your taste can change as well. And it's like
right.
you can try something a few times and then your body naturally feels like, hey, I want that. There's something in it I want. So then you begin to crave it. So yeah, we
It's
can
true.
change too. So yeah.
It depends
I
on
love
how
your
much
point.
cheese you put on top of it.
Right. Absolutely. Put enough garlic, butter, and white wine on something, I can eat anything, basically.
Cheers. Yes,
But the thing
sir.
is this, your point, Shane, is that we're evolving. We are evolving. Absolutely, we're evolving. Truth is evolving through us. And so we need to press into, is it still true for me? I'm going to try broccoli again. Oh, now I like it. Something has changed. Why did that change? How did that change? You can make all kinds of explanations about that. But it's also could be with ETs or more extraordinary, experiences in life. You might not see something when you go to the Seaside Ranch or whatever and hope to see something, you don't see it. And then the next time you go, wow, you saw it. So you have evolved. Or as Chris was saying, your frequency has come up perhaps. So you're seeing different realities. So this is it's evolutionary and very dynamic. And then you'll see here we get to level 3 is where there's more of a kind of a judgment made, where you might be looking at a sunset and say, that's a beautiful sunset. But somebody else perhaps has had a traumatic experience around sunsets and says, it's terrible. It makes me feel bad. So that's kind of a personal internal criteria of judgment that we place on things as good or bad, or something we like or don't like, or is true or isn't true. And then we get outside of our personal experience, which is the truth of others. And here's where it starts to get slippery. And this is where you need to have trusted relationships of integrity over time, basically developed. And in our time right now, a lot of trusted sources are no longer trusted. So we need to begin discerning what's true for ourselves. And I think that's part of the lesson as humanity we're learning. We have to discern for ourselves what's true for us, and, sourcing the sources. Where is this truth coming from? Where is this statement coming from? And can I trust the source? So we're being empowered to make those choices. And then when you get outside to level 5, it's what we don't know. And that can be super exciting. The mandanimals, for example, we don't know what we don't know. And we discover these things. It's really exciting. So that's a model.
That's an interesting model. I like that. It's a very good way to picture the concepts that you're presenting here. And I love the concentric circles, how it grows out in different truths, all the way out to one of my favorite phrases, as one of my favorite researchers, Jim Marrs, used to say, you don't know what you don't know. But definitely brilliant. I love this. And when you get into that truth of others, there is no other's truth. That's my truth. Only my truth only. A lot of people see it from that perspective. That's the level in which I really started to grasp the whole personal Mandela effect, opposed to shared Mandela effects. And I'm going to keep touching on that as we go forward, because once again, this book really helped me with that particular concept alone. Anybody else get any comments on this section?
I think for some people, they might start with that innate sense of being pure consciousness first. I know I'm speaking for myself. That's my experience. So some of us who are empaths and intuitive feelers might first feel like we are pure consciousness first. And then the layer above that would be the 5 senses and that kind of thing. So it's easier for me, as coming from that place, to experience just personal reality shifts, personal Mandela effects, basically miracles all the time, because I can drop into my core self, which is consciousness, and I know that's who I am. So it's easier for me to experience things. So I think that's interesting for people who are intuitive feelers who might be listening and thinking, well, maybe I don't always put my 5 senses first, and I don't quite do that either. And I think that's important to mention. Like, that's cool. That's all right. The model still works. So.
Yeah, I like that too, because it's almost like these are the lenses that begin to distort our reality in one way or another. You know what I mean? But that point you're talking about is almost beyond it's like what we try to get to in meditation. It's like tapping into that pure, unfiltered divine, knowledge or whatever experience.
Exactly. Let me just comment on that, because well said, both of you. The last chapter 10 we'll get to, is going beyond belief, going beyond the bubbles, which are the filters. And we go to the source of life itself, all the way down to, who and what are we? And it is that sense of beingness, that awareness itself. So I would agree. And once you get to that place, then all of these just drop away. And I think someone in the chat actually said that, called it level 6. You go beyond, you rise above all to see that everything is. So I like what you said, Shane, that these are.
You used the movie screen analogy, I think, in the book,
Yes,
right?
yes,
Right.
exactly.
That was perfect. I love that.
Right, that we are the movie screen upon which realities or bubbles are rising and falling.
Yeah.
So that's what you're pointing towards, Cynthia. Yeah, that's beautiful.
I wanted to mention too about level 4, and that is the truth of others. And as a parent, like I have 2 young boys, like it's very important that we understand that we can impress upon them our belief system, which may or may not be correct at the time. So we want to take special care about our children, especially like up to the age of 7, possibly up to the age of 11 as well. They're very impressionable, but not just as parents, but also like, what are they learning in the school system? And are they having these filters added to them that don't need to be there or they shouldn't be there? So that's another like little angle, that there's a part of responsibility that we have as a parent to make sure that our kids are being able to like create their own truth bubble in their own way and learn from other people, but not necessarily adapt it as their own.
Well said. Yes.
Would you say that, and I'm sure we'll touch on this later, but would you say that there are those in society that try to control the truth bubbles of all of us shared generally?
Absolutely. I have a degree in marketing. And so to a certain extent, I've been trying to influence and control the bubbles of others. I think, Cynthia, you have a degree in marketing as well, or an MBA.
MBA.
Yeah. So we do these things, right? And this is our capitalistic society influencing and controlling the minds of others. And it gets very sophisticated, and there's the psychology of advertising, and that's all a part of it. And this is why we need to be more alert and more aware than ever before at this time, and begin discerning our own truth from a place much deeper than just, listening to what this person over there is saying, or, well, heaven forbid, just believing the internet. So we have to become more responsible for these things, because there is agendas out there being run in many ways, even just to sell you something.
Responsible for our own truth. I like that a lot. That's a very good point to take home, folks.
We can keep moving. Let's go to the next one, next slide. And so this is the big one that I think is really related to the Mandela effect, and what really the Mandela effect challenges us in our awareness. What I called the myth of a reality out there. There's this belief that there's a reality out there, and we're all trying to describe it most accurately. I've got the science that describes the reality the way it is. Look at me, I am the truth teller. I have all the data. And so this is the mistake. This is because it's actually not a reality. You could even say 7.5 billion realities, each and every person on the planet. And so just becoming aware of this is important. And, as I said, I just love the new physics. The cutting edge physics is starting to poke beneath the surface of our material reality. And it was 100 or more years ago, Einstein said everything is energy. And that's a fundamental truth that we know scientifically is true. Yet do we live in the universe as if everything is energy? We don't, but it's true. And we can live into a universe like that. And not only is everything energy, but there's this observer effect due to the double slit experiment. And it's been replicated, I don't know how many times, dozens of times. The Institute of Genetic Sciences and Dean Radin, as a scientist, has replicated it himself right here in California. So we see that there's a role of us as observers in how reality occurs. And that's proven with some physics experiments, commonly known as the double slit experiment. And I'll stop in a minute to let Cynthia talk and others, because you have more experience with it. But when I read Cynthia's article, a newsletter mentioning at the MIT Technology Review that there was an experiment that had been conducted in Europe showing that you can have 2 different realities or measurements that are different showing up in the same space and time. They've demonstrated this, and I thought there's timelines right there. There is multiple universes showing up in the same space and time. And we're starting to see that this is true. So here we go. We can start to stand on the science of physics and begin to see multiple timelines, multiple realities, pocket universes. These things are possible. We're just getting there, but nonetheless, the science is supporting it. So this is exciting to me. And this is really where Mandela effects, can stand, we can start to understand them. So I'll stop there.
Cynthia nailed this one too when you were talking about no single objective reality for everybody.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Well, yes, many years ago or several years ago, I co-authored.
Yeah, before the study, I mean.
Yeah, before the study. Yeah, George Weissman and I wrote an article about, objective reality that may not exist, and that subjective reality is much more the way the quantum paradigm itself works, that we would expect to see what we subsequently have seen, which is the work at the university in Edinburgh, Scotland, at Heriot-Watt University, in collaboration with physicists working in Vienna, Austria, to show unequivocally in their experimental results that when they had 6 entangled quantum particles, 6 photons, in sort of a reenactment of the Wigner's friend experiment, with 2 observational devices at the same place, same time, except they're slightly separated, but they're still at the same location, observing the same, what one would expect would be one objective reality. They instead consistently were seeing different observations, and that is extraordinary. So it will be an experiment to be replicated many, many times. We're just seeing the beginning of it, but as I anticipate with George Weissman and many others, and yourself certainly, this is something we'll be seeing a lot more of in the future for the reasons that you're beautifully explaining.
This is where science starts to support us, right?
Yes.
That we can begin to use the tools of science to explore reality and discover that there's more than one reality. So it
Yes.
really is helpful to our evolution and awakening.
So
Love
would
that.
our
Absolutely.
default truth bubbles affect the reality around us? So observation is affected by, or reality is affected by our observation, our conscious observation, our truths, everything we are, how we filter things into our consciousness, things of that nature. When we're looking at an observation, observing the sky, for instance, that ain't necessarily got to be a double slit experiment. Our default truth bubbles even have an effect on our observation of that around us. Is that correct?
Absolutely. In very obvious ways and very less obvious ways. A very obvious way, looking at a cloud, people will see different shapes. And that has to do with, the shapes that there are kind of imprinted in their energy, their concentric circles of experience of the world. So right there, you're seeing different things. It's just a cloud. But even that is a truth bubble. What is a cloud? That's a word that we've labeled, a phenomenon in the universe or in our world. So there are obvious and less obvious ways that we're creating that. And some people do, with their consciousness, there's the rain dance. They cause it to rain. How does that work? Controlling the weather has been done with indigenous tribes for thousands of years. You can change the shapes of clouds. And so here's your example of looking at the sky. What is my consciousness and how does it play and influence these realities? It's a great question. And we know from science that there is an impact. The question is, how far does that extend? And what does that mean?
And who is
Good
the
question.
observer?
Who is the observer? Yeah.
It all comes down to that.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that, when you talk about like the multiverse and pocket realities, pocket universes, I created this video called Gucci of the Gods, where I explain like what the handbags were, like, from my point of view, from what I saw in the Akashic records, what they represent, and then how in today's modern world with theoretical physicists like Alan Guth and Leonard Susskind, like this is actually like something that's part of theoretical physics. And the whole concept is, I think Alan Guth described it really well. Like, we know about the Big Bang, but does that mean there is only one Big Bang? Is there only one star? Is there only one planet? Is there only, these things in nature go on and on forever and ever. So that whole concept is agreeing with what theoretical physics and science is saying, which I find quite exciting because you can see it on one end of the spectrum, and then you can see it on the scientific end of the spectrum too, as having a basis. And the way I look at things too is like, I think like we've been handed like a puzzle of like 1,000 pieces that's all white. And we could probably figure out the edges, but it's getting those middle pieces and putting them together. And I feel that a lot of people will bring like wisdom, and it's up for us to be discerning with what we take in. So I might create a video that might give you some aha moments. Someone else creates work where you're like, oh, I never thought of it that way. And you're actually finding places to put these puzzle pieces in. And then someone like myself or someone else might say something you don't agree with. Well, then throw that puzzle piece out because it's not good for you. So it's a journey. It's an adventure. It's learning. So it's all like amazing how all these things are coming together.
I love that. And you made me think of somebody asked the Dalai Lama once, do you believe in the Big Bang? And he said, oh, yes. Bang, 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 bang.
There you go. There you go.
I thought that is exactly it,
Yeah.
constantly banging. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
So he's, arrived there, he's a scientist in his own right, but arrived there, I'm sure, in deep meditation and intuited that. He just knows. Moving on. Ready? I'll just keep us going and watching the clock here.
Please. Yep.
Okay. So here we've talked a lot about fear and how fear is so prevalent on our planet today. It's nothing new. It's just ramped up to a larger level. We've got all of these challenges, whether it's the sixth extinction, the global warming and climate change, or, the pandemics and the, financial collapse. There's the fear, the possibility to live in fear is, I won't say greater than ever before, but it's certainly present. It's here for us. And so what is the source of this? And this is a personal experience, but also I'm working with clients and, listening to and learning from others. Fundamentally, what I've seen is that fear is a result or an experience of being disconnected. Disconnected from what? Disconnected from God or the source of life or this very deep or high aspect of what we actually are. And when you're connected to that place, and connection means that, you could say we're separate from it, but we can connect to it. Ultimately, you are one with it. There is no connecting or disconnecting. But to keep things simple, when we're disconnected from this source of all that is, from this force of life, it creates an experience that we're separate, we're small, we're alone, and this leads to fear. And this is, what the ego is here for us to help us with, is to survive in this very big and scary world. And so we get busy doing all kinds of things because we're disconnected to avoid the fear. And manipulation, control, piling up huge sums of money, whatever it is, because we're disconnected. So this is the fundamental source of fear. And if you can, in the next chapter, we'll talk about the connection. But here I'll stop since we're talking about fear.
See, I always thought the mainstream media was the fundamental source of fear.
We certainly are a source.
One that they've been trying to use against us for quite a while, but this really speaks to, and I'm definitely going to bring this back to the social order here. This definitely speaks to what the mainstream media does to disconnect you, to make you feel like you're the only one going the other way. You're the weirdo. You're not part of the crowd. You're not part of the group. You're not going with the herd. You're going to suffer these consequences. It's going to be bad. They constantly try to push this type of narrative onto us to try to manipulate and control our truth bubbles, right?
You got it. Absolutely. And the more disconnected you are from your own source of life, the more successful they'll be.
Absolutely. So be strong in your truth. Is that what you're saying? That which you know to be true, be strong in it, stand in your truth, stand in what you know, regardless of what someone else tells you, until you find, of course, evidence to support such. But would you agree with that, sir?
I would. It's a spiritual path. Ultimately, it's a spiritual path of hundreds of traditions have shown the path back to God or the source of life is a reliable one. And there are practices, many practices that will connect you with this aspect of what and who you are. And you can come to know it beyond belief. You can come to know this to be true and root yourself there. And then, as Michael Beckwith says, and others have said, be in the world, but not of it. you see the hurricane around you and you're in the eye, present and clear, capable of moving in any actually consciously chosen direction. So this is the path. This is the practice. It's not easy. And most people are disconnected right now. And so they're reaching and seeking things outside of them for safety.
Anyone else have anything to offer?
I'll just add one thing is that, fear is usually how the weak will seek to control the strong. It's like a tactic that's been used forever. Like, unless you believe us, you're going to go to hell, or, whatever the case is. So as we grow in our understanding of reality and the world around us, etc., then the fear starts to dissipate. It's almost like if you were in a relationship with an abusive partner, and that partner's like, if you don't, you need me and blah, blah, blah. And then finally, when you get to the level where you can break free of that, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I put up with that for so long. And I'm so happy to be out of that relationship. Yeah. So that's the backlash that fear has, because once you catch on that you are being manipulated by fear, then you can't go back. Then you become like really strong and solid for yourself. And you won't let anyone else like put you into that fear state again.
Amen. Amen to that. Very powerful. Fear is a red flag. As soon as fear shows up in my space, red flag, no matter what it is, even worries and concerns that I may be having. Oh, watch out, shift. How good can it get? Right. That's the shift.
Well, yeah. The thing that comes to mind with the fear is, like you mentioned, Shane has so much courage that he goes right for whatever that big thing is. And courage is a kind of love. It's part of this divine connection that we have when we feel connected with zero entropy, with source, with the creator, whatever you want to call it. And there's also two other corners on that drama triangle. There's fear, that's a big one. And then there's grief, sadness, that feeling of victimhood. And the divine component to rise above it would be hope. There's anger, where we get angry and feel righteous anger. That we know how to do it. We're going to tell everyone the right way to do this. And compassion can get us out of that. So when you have courage and hope and compassion, you can rise above the drama triangle. And that's, I think that's a big thing that people can do to override what may be marketing attempts, or some people call it psyops, whatever you want to call it, that's happening, where people are getting pushed into some truth bubble that's not their own.
Totally. I'm so glad you brought up the drama triangle. It's really a powerful psychological distinction. I believe it comes from family systems theory. People can go look it up. There's some really good YouTube videos on it. And, recently I realized that we were invited onto the drama triangle by various forces, people, and places. And the key is to recognize the invitation and say no.
Right.
Just say no to be don't take a corner on the drama triangle. And so it's usually through fear or some kind of guilt or some kind of a manipulation that someone wants to pull you on. And it's a challenge. It can be it's the practice to say no and rise above and invite others off the triangle. So I thank you for saying that. Let's shift to the next slide, because it's one of my favorite chapters in the book, which is love. Oh, sorry. Here I wanted to just point out that I wanted to point out the physiological components of fear and how they're built into our physiology. We can look down at the brain stem, or they call it the reptilian brain, and see that the main question that's asked there is, am I safe? And this is, not just physical safety, but it's also emotional and mental safety. And so out of that lower brain comes these habitual patterns of survival, which is fight, flight, or freeze. So if you are in that lower brain, if you're threatened, this is the kind of thinking that you have. You actually only have access to fighting, fleeing, or freezing. That's the extent of your capacity. You're in survival mode. And so fear puts us down into this lower aspect of our brain, even at mild levels. And now the next level is the limbic brain, and this is the relational brain. And the question that this part of the brain asks is, am I loved? Or am I included? Do I matter? It's a sense of belonging. And if the answer to that is no, then you'll drop back down into the reptilian brain, because you're threatened. You're not loved. You're not included. You don't matter. And so if we can navigate it through the reptilian brain and have the answer be, yes, I am safe. And if we can navigate through the limbic brain and have the answer be, yes, I am loved, I do matter, I make a difference, I am included, then we actually have access to our executive brain functions, which is the cerebral aspect where language and imagination live. And what happens here is the answer is, what am I learning? You're actually open to growth and learning, or creating and contributing and being your own authority. So as long as the powers that be or others who want to control and manipulate us keep us down in the fight or flight mode, we have no access to learn, to grow, even to love. So this is physiologically in us, and it's evolutionary. And so it's an imperative for us to, number one, create our own safety, be safe, affirm your own safety, create our own love, know that we are loved no matter what, and create our own capacity to access this executive function. And we can do it for ourselves. And that's where connecting to source really matters. When I connect to source, I'm loved wholly, I'm wholly safe. Nothing can touch me, nothing can get me. I'm not afraid of death. I'm free. And I'm free to create, I'm free to love, I'm free to be. So that's the power of real connection.
Love it.
I also like how this shows how you can also scare people away from the Mandela effect if you freak them out too much, right? You know, because they're going to immediately drop into this, you know, fight or flight mode.
Right.
And I've seen it. You know, people like get on their phone or they head, I got to go, you know, or whatever.
There were stories in the beginning of people who spent a week on the couch just rocking back and forth in this fight or flight mode.
If you can make
when
it
they
fun,
found out about
it's
it.
much better. Yeah, if you can make it a fun thing, an interesting thing. Check this out. This is cool or whatever.
Yeah.
So key. You got it. I mean, it's scary to think reality is changing like that, you know, that's unstable. How can that be a good thing? Well, you guys have done a brilliant job reframing and making it fun, and that's the way to do it. Good job. So we have this physiological aspect to ourselves. We can go next slide. And,
what is the quick coherence technique, sir?
Yeah, thank you. So this is heart math. Those of you that are familiar with heart math, a beautiful institute that's been around probably 30 years now in Boulder Creek out on the Santa Cruz Mountains of California. They have been looking at the heart and the wise heart, the intuitive heart, not just the pump or the magnetic heart, but the whole aspect of the heart. And they have very simple techniques for getting connected to the wisdom of the heart. And it's when your heart is incoherent or beating in erratic ways, it actually is sending fear-based signals to the brain, and it hijacks your capacity to think. And just through some simple breathing practices, breathing slowly into the count of 5 and out to the count of 5, you can start to regulate your own neurological system, your own physiology, and balance out the autonomic nervous system, the parasympathetic and the sympathetic, and start to open up the higher brain functions through heart math. And you can hear the wisdom of the heart, which is love-based, it's inclusive, it's peaceful. So just wanted to put a plug in for heart math as a simple technique for getting connected to source. For me, my soul, God, lives right here in my heart. It's right here. But I have to go and open the door through practice and look for the guidance, open to the guidance, and calm myself down. So the heart math, I wanted to put that in here. The science of the wisdom of the heart. And it's simple, and it's real, and it's powerful. Have any of you experienced heart math or done anything with it?
So I love the Heart Math Institute and the research they've done over there. I use them for following the Schumann resonance and a couple of things that they track on their data points, but I haven't done this particular technique. How about anybody else?
Back in 2000, I attended a workshop when I was at a conference on consciousness in Albuquerque, New Mexico, with some of the folks that were running Heart Math, and I've seen their talks here because I'm in California too. So, but I've already been doing some of the breathing. So I'm doing martial arts, and much of what we do includes a lot of what they're doing. So I felt like I'm already doing this through Kuksul One, my martial art, which is a very ancient 2,000-year-old practice. So it seems like it's there are. I guess I want to give a shout out to any of the ancient traditions that are working with this that may not necessarily be recognized, but they're not science in their Western form, but they, like you credited the Dalai Lama. Thank you for saying he's a scientist in his own right. Yes, there are wisdom keepers around the planet that are showing people how to breathe. And now we've got Wim Hof. It's always some new way to breathe, but it's very old. This stuff goes back thousands of years.
And it's free, and we can do it, and it's powerful.
Yes.
So key.
You know what else? Go ahead, sir.
Go ahead. I was going to say, I just want to add too that like the heart is so important, because the way I feel is that when you can connect to your higher self or your super consciousness or your own source, it's so important that you have those nice, easy brain waves so you can get that information and it flows into you versus the erratic that most of us have throughout the day. So there's definitely a big gem with this to helping us open our heart to let that wisdom that we have flow in and help us, create the right truth bubble for us.
And HeartMath has some good tools for people that want that biofeedback, that want to really get that indication, like how am I doing? Great. Then HeartMath, you should check it out for sure, because they make it fun and easy, and even kids can do it. So that's worth mentioning too.
And science-based. It's not woo-woo. This is real. And so it's extraordinary.
And I love anything that pulls together what is considered woo and puts it in a more scientific framework. That is what I strive to do in my work as far as the paranormal goes, is try to lay it in a understandable scientific framework. One thing that is strong about the human heart, and one emotion that we all share as well as fear, is love. If you'd like to go to the next slide, Roger, tell us about the source of love, sir. We've talked about the source of fear. What is this here?
Yay. I think this is my favorite chapter in the whole book. It's all about love for me. As you saw in my bio, I'm here, on a mission to create more love, a more joy-based world. And
how good can it get?
Yeah, completely aligned with the mission of IMEC and the open tables here, grounding in love. Love truly is the highest, most powerful energy in the universe. And for me, this is the practice of connecting to the God of your understanding. God carries a lot of baggage as a word, but we don't have to use that word. We can use other words that work for ourselves in our own truth bubble, our own source of life, nature, connecting deeply with a giant redwood, which I've done recently. It's such a potent force of connected, rooted energy. There's life in the world around us. We can connect to this energy. That creates an experience of a self that is whole, that is integrated, and is part of everything, which then leads to love. So this is, this is the result of a strong spiritual practice, where we can actually cultivate this relationship with our deeper self, or our actual source of life, and feel that we are safe and we are loved infinitely. And then from there, open up our higher brain functions, in fact, the intelligence of our entire body, and choose wisely and consciously going forward. So how good can it get? It's all about love. And that's our opportunity on the planet today. And fear, as I said, are red flags, indicating opportunities to create more love. They're doorways to love. And if we have the courage, and I like the root word of courage, which is a French, I believe, it means coming from the heart, or cour is of the heart. So courage actually has as its root love. Turn towards our demons, turn towards our fear in a field of love with an open heart, and move through to the other side, to the love that's there. That's the practice. So how good can it get?
Love that.
Love it.
Woo.
Yay, yeah. Feels good.
Yeah.
So I don't know if anybody wants to add anything. I don't know what the next slide is. I think it's chapter 6.
Yeah, next slide is chapter 6. So this one, I love this chapter too. Yeah, and you mentioned we've all gotten a chance to read this book, so we highly recommend, if people feel like they love the topic and they want to get into the heart of everything, it's worth getting it in paperback form. Or like Chris said, the audiobook's great too. But I think the source of love is what we all came from. We know it because it's our home. And when sometimes people feel like, I don't recognize this planet, I don't know what's going on, the world's gone crazy. But you know what that feeling of home is. You know it because you miss it. You know it because you have a feeling, a sense of it. That is part of how good it can get. That's part of this love that this chapter talks about. That's how it speaks to me. I love that. And it's so important. I've got redwoods here at my home too. And we're lucky, we're blessed to be able to commune with nature, whatever kind of nature we have, even if it's just a small potted plant in the house.
Very powerful. Christopher or Shane, any ads on the field of love?
Yeah, I'll just add something about like how I look at love as actually like a frequency. Like, can you open your heart and resonate the frequency of love? And then when you do that, when you're resonating that, it's a natural attractant where other people that are resonating at that same frequency will be attracted to you. And who knows what that will open up? You know, it's a whole concept of soul family. Maybe all of a sudden you'll start meeting more of your soul family, and you'll all start, one person resonating that love, it could spread to everyone else. It's almost like when you let your light shine, like your light can affect other people's light, like you start turning on everyone's light all at the same time. So yeah, having that frequency of love shows that you're really evolving too. You're growing as a human the way we should, versus being clamped down in fear the way so many of people are today.
Nice.
And I'd like to add to that too, as Chris was pretty well pointing out here, it's a choice. We have the choice to love or to hate or to choose fear or to choose the higher path, if you will. How good can it get? Even by asking that question, we've already chosen to go with the more loving outcome of whatever it may be, instead of taking it in as a fear or an anger or lashing out in some way. We totally have a choice over how we choose to react to these things, right?
We do. However, the default is from a survival-based mechanism, as we've seen in our physiology, to fear and fight, flight, or freeze. So that's a default habitual knee-jerk reaction to keep us alive, and it's worked for thousands and thousands of years. We're faced with an opportunity or choice, as you're all saying at this time, to survive through love. That the opportunity now, our survival depends on cultivating love and cooperation and collaboration and, you know, a human family that's united through diversity. So love is the way forward now, and that's our evolutionary imperative, but it isn't easy because, as we know, their default is there and it can be easily triggered. So it's a practice, and that's the doorway through.
And like you said, it's breathing. So anytime you get triggered, take that breath, get out of that lower fight or flight mode, right? And you'll start thinking a little more clearly.
As simple as that. Absolutely.
And it's right there all the time, right? It's been right there the whole time.
And I personally feel that the vibrations on the planet are raising, and you don't have to go into the Himalayas for a lifetime to become, you know, a love-based person. You can now access that frequency. It's here, more readily available than ever before. Spiritual paths are more accessible, you know, on the internet. You know, all of these traditions are now available at our fingertips like never before. These were ancient texts hidden away. You'd have to, you know, hike miles for weeks to get to these things and see the guru and learn these things. And now, boom, you can find it on the internet. Again, the internet serving us in ways that helps humanity evolve. And these practices and pathways are serving the frequency coming up. But it's because the frequency is coming up that these things are even available to us.
I forgot to mention when I did my little thing of what happened this last month or two, I meant to mention I do have an Ascension workshop that was a live event like December, but it's available. It's on my events page. It's all about exactly what we're talking about, you can do this anywhere. You can recognize that you're part of this evolution, this ascension, and it's all possible. So it's fun. Yeah.
It's fun. All right, let's look at the next slide to see what the next chapter, because I think we're basically shifting now to having this foundation established, you know, practices. How, given that, you know, we see how this world is kind of, we're creating our truth bubbles and we're living in these truth bubbles and interacting with other truth bubbles, what are the practices? And so here, chapter 6, seeing and creating your truth bubbles, the very first thing that we can realize is that our life is a mirror. That we can just look at our life and our life experience to see what we really believe is true. We may have things we think we believe, but if you want to know what you actually believe, just look at your life in all areas. And so it's a perfect mirror for our belief systems or our subconscious truth bubbles that are out picturing. And then the second thing is that the good news is we can shift our truth bubbles through awareness and practice, what I call conscious choosing, just becoming more and more aware in each moment, maybe choosing to shift to love at this moment and moving in a different direction. So this is what I call seeing your truth bubbles and then creating them, beginning to own your power as a co-creator of the external reality, the apparently external reality that you're in. So I'll stop there. Practices that you see, or ways that this relates to perhaps the Mandela effect?
So practices that I personally do is I have the ability, and I know a lot of us do have the ability to take in a concept or an idea without accepting it as truth, but taking it in as to look at, to examine, to consider the option of, without saying, this is now my truth. This is my truth bubble. I'm in this now. I personally do that. And if I find more evidence to support that truth bubble, then of course it tends to grow stronger. And if I find evidence against this particular thing, it tends to become a non-truth. Now, with that said, I would like to alternately swap over into the Mandela effect. And this again speaks to the personal Mandela effects. First, from the upper level, we can shift through awareness and practice our truth bubbles. Well, the person that doesn't believe in the Mandela effect, there's a person that I speak with almost on a daily basis who was really like, I'm not sure about this Mandela effect thing, guys. I think you might be wrong. Over time, through evidence, through showing different aspects, we've been able to shift his truth bubble into, well, okay, some things have changed. The Mandela effect is real. I don't know about all of them, but definitely something going on here. And once again, I hate to ramble, but real quick, it also speaks to the personal Mandela effects, as it says your life is a mirror. What you truly believe, well, what is true for you might not be true for the guy next to you. Once again, I had an experience where I opened a pack of supply at work, grabbed one piece out of it, went back to get another piece, and it was unopened again. So definitely little instances here where the truth bubble can be changed, can be shifted, can be maneuvered in ways that we can understand things around us to a better degree.
Yes.
And I love your book, Roger, where you get into these stages in this chapter, and you talk about it starts with that victim consciousness that I was mentioning earlier that you were also referring to. It starts with to me, where things happen to me. And then you can rise above that level, connecting through love and breathing, and get to that manifester consciousness by me. And then, but you can keep going up. Then you can get to through me, where you feel like you're channeling, like I'm just a conduit. And then you can actually go above that. I've got the book right in front of me. Yeah. You can get to as me, being consciousness. That is so cool. So I just want to really say that I resonate so strongly with that whole section. Just knowing that you can just keep rising through being fed, being connected to this love in your heart and feeling like I'm part of this. And you can get to an extremely high state of just vibrating with reverence, and it feels fantastic. So really love that. Thank you.
Yeah. And a shout out to Michael Beckwith for that. That really is a model that I borrowed from him, and give him credit for that in the book. And it's simple, but it shows the evolutionary journey that we're on. Of course, it's a model, it's a map. It's not actually the terrain. So we hold our models lightly, but it's helpful, as you said, looking at, victim consciousness, which would be more someone that's on the drama triangle. And then, hey, can I rise above into manifestor consciousness and begin choosing and co-creating my reality? Right. Yeah, that's a big move. That's a big shift, right. And then moving up into channel consciousness, how's the divine wanting to express through me? As Jerry was saying earlier, writing his book, that's channel consciousness. Something's writing through me. It's not me. I'm not doing it. When you're a really clear channel, even when I'm speaking here, some aspects of what I'm saying are channeled consciousness, words coming out that I didn't expect to say. People will say, can you say that again? I'll say, I don't even know what I said. I can't say it again. Right? Because it's just coming through. Yeah. And then the highest level up there, on that model is being consciousness, where there is no separation. You're not connecting and disconnecting or channeling. You are it. It and you are one. Someone in the chat said that. It all isness, wholeness, oneness. That's a beautiful place to be, which resonates with love in my book. It is the field of love at that place. And it's a journey of love through all of those consciousness levels. So thanks for bringing that forward. I think the maps and models are helpful.
They are.
Christopher.
Yeah, I wanted to add too that I like the analogy of a mirror, because you could be looking at a mirror and it could be dirty. So you're not seeing a good reflection. You start to clean that mirror off, and then you could see your reflection even clearer. Or there's the whole concept of the circus fun house, when you go into like the house of mirrors, and depending on how much the mirror is warped in a different direction, it will distort the way you look. You could look really big and overweight, or you could look really tall and really thin. Your face changes and so forth. But as that mirror, as you can flatten a mirror and make sure that there's nothing in the way, then you can start to see like a much better picture as you start to like remove those filters and remove those abnormalities from the mirror surface. So I like that analogy.
I love that. And I see Melinda Iverson over there in the chat saying, as long as my lens is clean, then I can see the true truth bubble of who I am in my life.
Yes.
That's pointing, you know, so you could say the spiritual path of practice is cleaning that lens, you know, purifying that lens. Or as Michael Beckwith says, it's all unlearning. You know, you're letting go of stuff. So cleaning, letting go. Yeah, there you go. That's great. Let's
Growing
go to chapter
and accepting new truths, new truth bubbles.
Opening up to new truths. Yeah, absolutely. Another thing I say in the book is that what was true yesterday may no longer be true today. We have to test our truths. Truth itself is evolving. And so, you know, we get attached to these things being true at some point, but the universe is a very dynamic, and as it's been said, change is the only constant. So we test our truths, both personal truths and the truths of reality itself. Because they're in motion, they're moving.
Well, let me ask you, Roger, moving on, what are those things that influence these truth bubbles?
Wow, that's a big question. And the first answer comes to me is us, certainly in our own personal truth bubble. We are the most influential aspect of our personal life experience. So that's the good news. We are in the center of our truth bubble, and we are creating. We are powerful creators. And the more conscious you are, the more powerful you are as a creator, I would posit. The more fear-based you are, the less powerful you are as a creator. The more influenced you're going to be by others' truth bubbles. So beyond that, then I think there are collective possibilities. You know, like here we're creating a truth bubble. The five of us in dialogue are creating a reality, a possibility for ourselves and others. We're co-creating this thing, hopefully assembling some interesting pieces of a cogent truth bubble that would be inviting to other people, that would invite them into creating something like that in their own life. So groups of people do it. And how big of a group do you want to get to? And then I think out beyond that is cosmic influences. And I've been a fan of the yugas, you know, an ancient Indian philosophy that shows the cycles of the cosmos. And you can look at the 25,920-year cycle, and it makes a ton of sense. And I reference a book by Joseph Selby in my book that shows lots of examples from history how the yugas make sense. And the good news is we're just out of the Kali Yuga, which is the darkest cycle where we believe we're nothing. And it makes sense. Given what we're dealing with, you can map it on. It's a model that helps make sense of the world. Is it true? I don't know, but it's helpful.
Well, we can sure feel the chaos. So a lot of us would say, yes, it's true.
Right.
It seems like a lot of the chaos is caused from things that's been happening for a long time, finally coming to the light. So,
yes.
I like that. That's
which
a beautiful
is a good thing.
That is a very good thing.
Kind of like cleaning out behind the fridge, as my friend Eileen would talk. You know, you clean it out, it looks horrible. Yeah. But you gotta kind of get through that stage to get the kitchen clean. So.
Exactly. That's a good analogy. We want it nice and clean. Cleaning the lenses here.
Yeah.
So Jerry, building on what you said, you know, what are the influences? Here's chapter 7. I delve more deeply into the influences and, you know, how much power do we actually have to create our realities? And we're certainly co-creators. And as I said, our capacity and our consciousness, our capacity is related to our consciousness. And I will say that anything is possible. That reality and our life experience is that malleable. I mean, you have all, Cynthia, some really extraordinary examples of, you know, healing bones, you know, without the need to go to the hospital, and manifesting dollar bills in your wallet when they weren't there before, you know, one at a time. I love that. You know, anything is possible. Can you manifest it is the question. Can you believe? Are you sourced enough and aligned enough that the reality that you really want to experience, this isn't coming from the ego, separate sense of self, greedy and needy. No, it's coming more from the aligned, whole and complete. Because when you're whole and aligned, you really don't need anything at all. And then from this place of needing nothing, what would I like to create? And from that place, you can begin to have some influence. You can begin shaping. And it becomes fun, manifest a cup of coffee, right? Is that easier than manifesting $10 billion? Maybe, for some it certainly is, and others it isn't. So anything is possible, but we have to play our own evolutionary edges. And therein lies the game, the fun, the moment to moment kind of life experience of looking at how good can it get? Where's my capacity today? And co-creating our realities. So I'll open it to practices that you all, engage around your own envelopes of influence and finding those edges.
Well, I can definitely tell you about expanding an envelope of influence. The first one that really struck out to me is IMEC. When I first had the concept, for those that don't know, it was originally something that I'd come up with. I wanted to do a full conference like a standard conference would normally be, your regular scientific with your speakers and the whole 9 yards, as we put on in Ketchum. But as a person that had never even been to a conference before, that was a challenge to say the least. Convinced myself many times that it was impossible. There's no way, everybody will laugh at it. There's no, don't waste your time, don't waste your energy, don't waste your money. And I finally took that risk, expanded that option of reaching out to Cynthia, who luckily had a lot more experience in conferences than I did. And as we reached out to Chris and Shane and everyone that has helped us along the way, we have grown into something that is really become something so much bigger than all of us. We're all a part of it, but it's so divine, so much bigger. It's brought us here to be with you today, sir. But it's definitely been an expansion of our envelope of influence. We're now able to, I don't even like using the word influence the community because that almost sounds manipulative, but we're able to put our point of view out there in a way that is accepted. We're able to do these deep dives of information, these researches into the Mandela effect to bring these truths as we know them out to the community and definitely expand our envelope of influence as far as a community goes and as researchers go with the effect. So definitely from going to the concept of just a thought, a possibility, nothing more than some would say a neurotransmission in my head, to actually bringing this into full function to where we sit today, it's definitely been a very expansive experience for me as far as like envelopes of influence goes. We've been able to expand this envelope a lot.
Hallelujah. Well done.
Yeah.
That's a great example.
Yeah, and that's partly due to just rising above the ego, not getting into ego at all. I think that's been, if you want look at this one example, I think that's why, because we just share such passion, such shared purpose, and such mutual respect for one another and genuine love for each other. And for you too, Roger, you're such a part of this now. So like for all of us that started it though, that I think raised it right out of nothingness. It kind of came together almost on its own. Like you said, Jerry, you got the podium that just showed up out of like nowhere.
Yes. The podium I manifested by accident and didn't realize it. I know we're low on time, but I have to tell this story. I tell it every chance I get. It's just one of those amazing things that happen. We needed a podium. That was the one piece that I did not have for my whole concept, was a podium to stand at and give the speeches. And I had asked the hotel that we were staying, hey, do you guys have one of these available? No, we don't have that. We're not planning on getting one. Not at all. Okay, no problem. So when Chris and I originally went to set the room up and start putting up the pieces and whatnot, I walked in and I rested my arm on something, just kept looking around. As I looked down, I realized that I was resting my arm on the podium that they supposedly weren't going to get. So somehow in that time, I had manifested them to get a podium and just for our conference nonetheless. Because like I said, they told us they weren't going to get it. So I walked in, I'm hanging out on it, whatever. Oh my goodness, they got it.
I love it.
definitely a manifestation of the influence of truth.
Well,
from
yeah,
each of us.
and part of this chapter, I talk about synchronicity, and when synchronicity is showing up in my life, and I've talked with many others about this, and studied Carl Jung and his philosophy around synchronicity. He coined the term. That's a sign we're on the right path. The universe is winking. Yes, you're moving in the right direction. You're aligned. You're unfolding. This is great. So when a podium, shows up that was said it wasn't going to show up, and there it was right under your arm, you're on the right path. This thing is, you're going the right way, right? And here we are. It's come to here through a series of, you could say, stepwise activities through the consciousness of yourself, Jerry, but also all of you. This has unfolded to this moment right here, right now. And
I will definitely say it has been a team effort the entire way. I take credit for having the original idea, but again, that was divine from universe. Having an idea is one thing, putting it into action, total different thing. And the team is 100% the whole way. I will never take credit from them. But definitely and another truth bubble that we hold, right?
Right. Out there on the evolutionary edge of humanity, being the leaders that we want to see. So I think everybody here listening to this, you are the leader that you're waiting for. You are the leader that you're wanting to see. We have to role model it and be it, and, especially ground in love. So we're being called out, and it's time. Let's go to chapter 8. Let's look at the next chapter, keeping us moving along here. So going deeper, that's what this is about. And it's really, I myself have suffered greatly at the hands of my subconscious. It's a very powerful force. And somebody in the chat had asked about self-judgment and how that affects, truth bubbles. Well, it absolutely does. What we believe about ourselves tends to be true out in the world. So I've had a long theme that goes back to family of origin and other issues about being a disappointment, that I'm a disappointment. I'm going to disappoint people. I'm going to let them down, which is very hampering when you want to be out on an evolutionary edge and coaching leaders and teams and things. It's not really helpful to have a belief system that I'm a disappointment, but yet nonetheless, there it is. And it's quite deep and ingrained. And it's been a path of practice, a real transformational partner of mine to evolve through and beyond. And so this is in the subconscious, but over time, for a long time, I didn't even know that existed. I just was having the life I was having. I was the fish swimming in the water. And then I started teasing it out and seeing, wow, this is what I believe about myself. Why is that? And starting to look and begin to consciously change it. So this is going deeper. This is going deeper into these aspects of ourselves that are on automatic. They're on default. They're just happening. And waking up, that's the path of waking up and beginning to actually question with love the things that are limiting you, that are holding you back, that are creating suffering in your life. So that's what this chapter is about. And there's, lots and lots of tools and practices. Not to mention therapy. I did 9 months of 2 hours a week therapy with an amazing man who was incredibly helpful, and I healed a lot of that. So that path was powerful. There are tools. There are, the Sedona method, Byron Katie. She does amazing things with the work. These are ways to kind of get at and transform belief systems that are running on autopilot that are no longer serving us. So I'll stop with that. That's the main point here.
Have you guys on the panel found instances where your subconscious has literally what's the word I'm looking for? Messed with you. I can't think of the word I'm looking for off the top of my head. But have you found your own worst enemy in these cases, guys?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think it was most noticeable when I went through a Kundalini awakening. That's kind of like when all the stuff hit the fan all at once. It was like, oh my gosh, when you're running that much energy and there's no more room for the subconscious noise is what I found, unless I literally want to experience like not just the good stuff happening, but weird stuff. I'm not going to talk about it, but weird stuff happening. Let's just leave it at that. And because all the good things we've talked about, pulling money out of a wallet, sure. Thousands of dollars just showing up in my bank account, sure, that's good. Back in the day of the Kundalini awakening, when I had subconscious stuff, boy, it was like, everywhere. It was a strange time. So I quickly learned that I had to stay grounded all the time to run that much energy, or I'm going to blow out all the appliances in every room I walk into. Just to start there, just start with that one. It's like, okay. So there's no more room for any subconscious junk. You're like, okay. So it's like quitting smoking cold turkey or something. Like I won't say it's easy, but I had to really dive in.
And sabotage is the word that my mind was sabotaging me from remembering.
But another example is kind of funny. I once gave a talk. Nassim Haramein was there. He was giving a talk. This is to tell you how long ago it was. It was like 1999 or something. He was talking about the tarot. I was talking about physics. But here's the moment for me. I looked at the audience of 100 people, and they at one moment they all had their eyes closed. My self-talk, my sabotaging self-talk told me they are bored. You're talking about quantum physics. What did you expect? Nobody wants to hear this. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I felt like I'd really flubbed the whole talk. Afterwards, so many people, I think 5 or 6 people came and said best talk they'd ever heard. My subconscious was talking over them and saying, oh yeah, right. I saw everybody with their eyes closed all at once. So that's what the subconscious can do. And then I had to realize, because of this whole Kundalini thing, I can't carry that kind of subconscious garbage, because it was creating chaos, like huge pig pen effect with literal physical objects. So it was a mess. So I had to quickly recognize I'm going to have to start trusting people whose truth bubbles do not match mine, to use this language of Roger Marsh. And I'm going to have to believe them. Like, how do I believe this person when it's so different than my belief? That I bored them. I know I bored them. No, you have to listen. You have to believe that they thought that talk was at least acceptable. Why else would they come and tell me? So it was stuff like that it's an interesting way to start navigating and recognizing time to change your own belief based on maybe someone else's truth. That's very interesting.
Yeah, I would say too, I had a similar experience before I created my first video about the Mandela effect, because like as a business person talking about the Mandela effect and software, and it was like going out on the edge. So I had all these things like, no, just keep quiet, don't say anything. And then when I decided I was going to do it, then my board of directors is like, don't you dare do that. People aren't going to buy our software anymore. Blah, blah, blah. They're going to think we blame bugs on the Mandela effect or whatever it is.
Okay.
So once you kind of get over that and you step out on the ledge, it's very empowering. And again, it's like Jerry doing the Mandela Effect conference. Like, we're all here because of that. And I'm here talking to you guys because I took that little step of bravery to go out and talk about the Mandela effect. So I definitely see how the subconscious could try to hold us back. But if we can overpower it, it makes things so much better. And then the subconscious benefits too. So it's a win for everybody.
Yeah.
Those are great examples. Very good. We can go to chapter 9. Just keep us moving here. And so here's something that we were touching on a little bit, and it's really up for us on the planet today. And I called the chapter Worlds Collide, because this is when there are different truth bubbles. And I give the example of overlapping circles. So each circle representing a truth bubble of an individual. And, when truth bubbles are really overlapping, which is, as I would say, they are amongst the 5 of us here, we have, to a large part, at least in this context, in this conversation, we have overlapping truth bubbles about this topic. So we can really engage and, co-create and learn together. And then as differences show up amongst truth bubbles, there might be some overlap, but there's more disagreement than there is agreement. And so it starts to get difficult, choppy waters in building those relationships. And then you have the truth bubbles that are completely opposite, totally separate in all realms of life, whatever it may be. And we can think of some real simple ones. But how do you navigate if you do desire a relationship with this person that's in a completely different truth bubble? Let's say a parent. That's often the case. The child has a different truth bubble than the parent. How do you navigate that? Because you love your parent and you want this deep relationship with them, but you have these opposing truth bubbles. Therein lies the challenge, and therein lies why I wrote this chapter. And the first thing I wanted to do is empower people with what I say here. You don't need anyone to believe your truth bubble for it to be true for you. First of all, claim your own truth and own it. Stop looking outside of yourself to be validated. You don't need it. You are your greatest source of validation. So own that. And that some of those stories that you told here just a moment ago, Christopher stepping out, owning his truth. He didn't need his board to believe it. He just stepped out and created his truth bubble and then has seen it unfold in great ways. But the key is, You don't need other people to validate you, to have your own truth. It's your truth bubble, no matter what. And that opposite is true. Others don't need you to believe their truth bubble for it to be true for them. So this gives us a tremendous amount of freedom. We can honor our own truth bubbles while entertaining others, not feeling like, well, now I have to believe your truth bubble and give up mine. How do I do that? Not necessarily. I think, Jerry, you were saying, I can be open to listening to other truth bubbles, try them on like a jacket. And if it fits, great. Maybe I'm going to get this new truth bubble. And if it feels uncomfortable, that's not for me. Take it off. But we don't need to strip others of their jacket. It's a comfortable jacket for them. And hey, you look great in that jacket. That's your truth bubble. Good for you. It's not my truth bubble, but I honor yours. And so this for me, is about freedom and really moving into unity through diversity, which is a term that I love. When we can all have our own truth bubbles, yet be in harmonious cooperation with one another, rather than competition for what's true, we're really moving and evolving then. So I give some practices for how to navigate when you're really in those kind of contentious, tense conversations about really grounding in your own source of safety and love, extending compassion and love to this person, and opening your curious listening so that you can just honor their truth bubble, even if it's the opposite of yours. Honor theirs. So there's some practices that will help us navigate these times. And I'm done with that. So thoughts from others, if there are any.
Cynthia?
Oh, so many thoughts. I don't want to tie up too much time, but oh my gosh, this is huge. Because I think it brings up, first of all, this idea from quantum physics, of course. And also you can think of it as Eastern thinking, fourfold logic, quantum logic. And you can also see it in improv, people that do acting and do improv. It's basically this idea of yes and in improv. In quantum physics, it's the idea of quantum logic. With Eastern thinking, it's fourfold logic, which is like true and not true, or true. And so you've got something could be, it's not just black and white, like classical physics would tend to, and classical logic is all based on binary, black and white, two things, one or the other. Quantum physics is not that way at all. There's so much uncertainty, and there's so much of an embracing of the fact that you can have, it's kind of like yes and, like with improv, it's basically true and false, not true and not false. And it just really brings all that up. And I once co-authored a paper called When Worlds Collide. We acted it out at a conference, myself and an anthropologist, Anne Mene. And it was about exactly, it was an example of like these two people having very different worldviews, different experiences, like we in the Mandela Effect community notice, and how to go through that. So I've got so much I could talk for hours on this one point, but I don't want to do that. But it's huge. Love it. And I love the book. So well done.
All right. Before Cynthia carries on for another hour, I really believe she's got enough information she could do just that. I'm sorry, Roger. I didn't mean to cut you off there, my friend.
No, I was just loving what Cynthia said. I like how you bring the science in and the physics and the different, the uncertainty principle. That's just brilliant. If we can sit in uncertainty and really embrace our not knowing, wow, what freedom is available to us from that place? It's extraordinary. It's beautiful.
Awesome.
And our science is supporting us in this direction. It's just not, it's not well understood. People have said the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. So
I like that.
Help you more evenly distribute this.
Love it.
I really like that. I might have to write that down here in a minute. The future is here. It's just not as evenly distributed. Shane, you have anything to add, sir?
Well, like we were talking in the green room before we went live, really gets at the heart of why I even started my channel, was to create a place where worlds don't collide, where you can just consider, like you were saying, Jerry, where you just consider someone else's view without having to take it on and change your whole life. You just consider it and then imagine yourself being put in their position, and you'd see that you come to the same conclusions they have. And it really does help to tear the walls down between people. When instead of debating, you just try on their worldview like an outfit or whatever it is, set your aside for a moment. And that's, like I said, that's been a huge benefit to me with my own personal growth, with unifying with everyone around me,
Wonderful.
Absolutely. And I again, fully love that concept of trying on the truth bubble. That's something that I've prided myself on a lot, especially as a theoretic researcher. I can't on one theory and say, I know it's this is the way it is, have a very scientism look on it. This is my narrative. I'm going to make sure my evidence fits this narrative, and that's that, opposed to, hey, one person thinks it's multiple worlds, where another person thinks it's CERN, where another person thinks, I have to be able to understand and accept, like Shane said, take these concepts in, take the ideas in without saying, yes, I 100% believe this. However, I can definitely see where this makes sense with this, and this. Definitely a practice I think we could all benefit from. Both everyone listening in chat, those listening on demand, and all of us here, I'm sure, can agree that that's something we could all help to work on to help increase our both our knowledge of the world and each other, as well as our compassion for each other and each other's arguments and points of view. Just being able to take in and just briefly look at them. And once again, I'm rambling, and I have a really bad habit of doing that. But this really speaks to the point, and I'll finish on this note and hand it over to Chris if he has anything. I really have found that this right here speaks to the personal Mandela effects. I told you I'm going to keep bringing this up the entire book. This right here really speaks to that. It doesn't have to be true for me for you to have experienced this personal thing. The light switch on your wall jumped to the other wall. That don't have to be true for me for you to know that's true for you. That is your truth bubble. It has taken me a long time to be able to accept things, stories like that, personal anecdotes that one would say, oh, well, maybe you were mistaken. Maybe this, maybe that, maybe. It's really taken me a while to comprehend the fact that there can be personal Mandela effect experiences that don't have to be shared by the group, but can still fall under this banner that is their truth opposed to what I see in my experience. This chapter really, this whole book, once again, folks, if you are having a problem with that aspect, this whole book right here, Truth Bubble. Thank you, Cynthia. And yes, we all have a copy. It's really, really changed my life and helped me have a better comprehension of how to comprehend and understand others. It really, really has. And once again, I'm done rambling now. Chris, would you like to add anything to my ramble here?
Yeah, I'll add a little bit to your ramble. So my comment actually ties chapter 7, 8, and this chapter 9 together as well. But I liken it to so truth bubbles, we're thinking about our own truth bubble, right? But a country or a nation could have a truth bubble about what they believe to be true about the world. Or science could have its own accepted truth bubble about what it accepts to be true. And then I liken that to the Mandela effect, because if we go out to science, it will tell us that we are simply misremembering, or we're confabulating, or we have Alzheimer's disease or something like that. So we, like you say, we have to be free to be able to discover our own truth bubbles. So for myself, when I saw the world of science was saying that the Mandela effect was just misremembering, I knew that wasn't real. I know that their truth bubble was not my truth bubble. And then that led me on an entire adventure to begin to understand what the Mandela effect was. So I like all of these three, the 7, 8, and 9, I like them all together.
Very well said.
Thanks.
Yes. And we're exploring our own truth bubbles. That's where it starts. And it can be helpful, of course, if you have a conversation who also had the light switch move to the other side, right? You're like, it happened for you too. Wow. It can help, solidify your own experience. So that's why these forums and conversations, I can find other people like yourselves that are experiencing Mandela effects and affirm my reality. I'm still consciously choosing my reality, but I'm listening to you as trusted travelers on the path and saying it's happening for others. Okay, yeah. It does give you some ground. So we can move out into concentric circles, once again, looking at trust and love, authenticity, integrity, honesty, and find these truths for ourselves. So that's the journey. All right, last chapter, here we go. Chapter 10, bringing it home, going beyond the bubbles, going beyond belief. The statement is truth bubbles rise and fall in something far greater. They rise and fall in awareness itself. which I would posit is ourselves. Any of you that are deep meditators will recognize that in deep meditation, you are the awareness of all that is. Things are arising, thoughts are arising, feelings are arising, sounds are arising. They're just going up and they're going down. It's just happening. But there's this aspect of ourselves that is, you could say, infinite, eternal, and contains all experience. And we can step back into that and realize that truth bubbles literally arise and fall in this thing called awareness. And we mentioned earlier the movie projector or the movie screen example, that this awareness is like a movie screen where the images are projected onto it. And so the images are not the movie screen, but yet there's this drama unfolding. There's this activity unfolding on the movie screen. So we are the movie screen, and the truth bubbles, the dramas, all of these things are rising and falling in that. And when we can identify and rest in that place, which for me is loaded with love, loaded with safety, it's an infinite field of divine love intelligence. The truth bubbles, we have less attachment to them, and we can allow them to rise and fall, and we can allow others' truth bubbles to rise and fall, and we can navigate more wisely from that place. So it's a profound spiritual move. It's a path of practice to cultivate that awareness, and therein lies the opportunity to become more and more a co-creator with the metaverse, if you will, or the multiple timelines that are unfolding, and kind of help nudge it in directions that you would prefer. Bring heaven on earth.
I just want to clarify, when you say metaverse, you don't mean like the Facebook metaverse, right?
I definitely don't mean that. No, that is not a future that I'm affirming nor want to step into, but the multiverse, let's say. Yeah.
I just don't want to make sure there's no confusion amongst our audience, because our audience will rip stuff like that apart on us if we're not careful. But
that's good. I'm glad they do that.
Yeah, me too. Keeps us honest, right? But you bring such a great point here. I love the, and I hope I'm not stepping on where you were headed. I do apologize. I love the movie screen analogy upon which your life experiences are projected. We make our own movie, but it is being projected on this reality to a degree. I like that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we can become aligned with that unattached, free awareness, and then choose, as I said, consciously, the direction we'd like to move in, the people we want to spend time with, the words we want to say, the choices we make moment to moment from this more free, love-based reality. That's the idea. That's the practice.
How would you feel about this particular comment? JD Peterson in chats, and I really love this. It says, validation. We don't need others to validate our reality. I've had some strange things happen lately, and I don't need to share with others to validate to me it happened. Would that be pretty much a good summary of a truth bubble for that person?
Totally. I mean, that person's feeling very confident in their experience and needs no validation from anybody else. Hallelujah. You've got it. You own that. I think that's a great choice.
Love it. Looks like our audience is definitely picking up on these concepts here. Love it.
I'm looking at the chat too, and I see a lot of really good things. Yes. So we're free. We're free to have our own experiences, and then free to share with others our experiences and listen to the experiences of others. That's the idea. And co-create, a universe or an experience that we'd all like to be in, what I call heaven on earth. I'm interested in creating heaven on earth, grounding that here in this physical reality. And that's clearly a path of practice. Heaven on earth for me is grounded in love, and it's unity through diversity. So thank you for doing all that. Thoughts from others with respect to this awareness? I know Cynthia mentioned some meditation practice you're in and how that occurs.
Yeah, I've got a meditation. It's funny you mentioned heaven on earth, because that's the third part of a meditation CD I have, or a healing meditations. That's exactly it. It's like, well, that's where we end up. Yeah. So it's like, oh,
yes.
Yeah, that's the whole point. And
that's where we end up.
Yeah. For meditation, it's such an individual thing. People can learn to combine a favorite activity with a favorite focus. And there you go. You're meditating. Some people are very active, like I have to walk. You can do a walking meditation. So the key message here, it's love, really. I think your book really points that out, gives us permission to start looking at ourselves a little differently, with more compassion, with more love, with more courage. And I love how your book brings in the science and makes it possible. And I was wondering if you want to share a website or a way that people can stay in touch with you, get any information you're sending out. Is there something
For sure. Thanks for the segue and the opportunity. Next slide will show that, I believe. Go to my website, truthbubble.com. And there's a link there to buy the book. It can be hard to find on Amazon. But if you go to my website, there's a link, buy the book now, and then it'll take you to the right place on Amazon to get the Kindle version or the Audible version as read by me, with passion and conviction. And the other thing I want to encourage.
And the paperback too, so you can
yes,
mark
the paperback.
it up, highlight it. Yeah.
I like the paperback, of course. It's my favorite thing to have it in your hands. I'm still an old school book reader, but all the versions are available. The other thing too, you can get on my website if you go to truthbubble.com and subscribe to my newsletter. And I'm really not sending anything out right now, but the reason you want to get on my newsletter list, I may send some things out in the future, but you'll get a free guided meditation called the Love Expander. It's about 17 minutes. It's a guided meditation made by me, deeply relaxing, and it just moves your conscious awareness and attention towards all the things in your life that you're grateful for, which is so important right now, to focus on the good, focus on the love, focus on the things that are really working for us in our lives. That's what that meditation does. I think it's one of the most powerful things any human can be doing right now, is cultivating love and dropping into that field. So there's a free meditation for you, 17 minutes. And I would love to give it to you if you want to put your name onto my contact list. And with that, I'm complete. Thank you.
Well, but stick around, folks, because there's more.
Yes.
So don't leave, because he's not done.
Yeah, the fun part, right? It's coming
Yeah.
up.
Let me tell you before we jump into that, once again, I know I've said it a multitude of times. This book right here, guys, really has helped change my mindset and my understanding of others' realities, of truth, of the Mandela effect, of personal effects, especially of personal Mandela effects. I cannot push enough. If you're having issues comprehending it and accepting that, definitely check out this book. I have enjoyed it, Roger. Wonderfully written, well done. My truth bubble is that this is an amazing writing. One more thing. Do you think that if we were all to choose the love side, that we could drown out the amount of insane amount of fear that is being pushed into our society by these mainstream media goons, things like that? Do you think we could overwhelm that system with love?
I think it's worth a try. What I do know is that we can definitely shift our own reality. There's no doubt about that. You will experience more love as you shift your own reality and truth bubble towards more love. And therein lies the big benefit for any individual. But beyond that, of course, we can be co-creating with others, both in small groups and large groups, more and more love, more and more connection, more and more of what it is we desire to experience on the planet. So eventually, yeah, that spreads. Can it go all the way? I don't know. I don't know if it needs to. What's the timeline that we want to be on? That's really what we're choosing. So it's definitely worth a try, just from the individual perspective, but it will ramp up to wider and wider realms.
So I'm going to open this up to the panel here. The rest of the, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, that's fine.
I guess I'm going to open up to the rest of the team, but I was going to ask real quick, Roger, is one of your truth bubbles the Mandela effect?
Absolutely. I include the Mandela effect in my truth, my reality, for sure. I've got a number of them. And, they're door openers, awakeners, if you will, signals, winks from the universe. I'm on the right path. So it's in.
Well, I think the team has a little bit of fun game that you might enjoy a lot here, folks. I'm going to now step back, and I got to step away for just a moment. Cynthia, Chris, Shane, the floor is yours, guys.
Okay. So we'll start the next slide, and this shows that we're going to go through a number of, we got 8 of these examples just to see if Roger recognizes. Here's number 1, possible Mandela effect for Roger. So you can see a picture on the right, Grand Central, and then fill in the blank. What would you call this? It's in New York is the clue, Grand Central.
Yeah, I've been there several times at least. Grand Central Station.
Thank you. Great. Everybody can see the chat. What do you guys say? Put in whatever you remember. I think this one's a pretty good one. It's an oldie but a goodie. I think we've got enough time, so we'll go to the next slide and we'll see what it's currently called. It's now called Grand Central Terminal. There was a brief time for like 7 years that it was called Grand Central Station, but that was over 100 years ago. So it's interesting that even though it's supposed to be now always called Grand Central Terminal, there are so many examples. I just saw Crocodile Dundee, and it was mentioning Grand Central Station. So you'll see it in movies. You'll see it. This was what people tend to remember. So,
but it's etched in the rock, Grand Central Terminal now, like it's always been that way. Yeah.
That's what it's been since 1907 when it got built. Yeah.
I'm interested in the distinction between terminal and station. These Mandela effects have meaning if you look for the meaning.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was going to my dictionary to look up terminal. I can't quite find it that fast, but for me, terminal would be a place where multiple trains or timelines come into. A station would basically be a stop. So for me, that opens up the possibilities of timelines. Things are coming into the terminal and then going out. I'm not sure if that's correct, but it would be a way that I would like to see the change.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
That's good.
Terminal, forming the, let's see. Well, it actually says concluding, final.
Yeah, usually it's considered a terminus, I guess that's from the Latin root, but yeah, terminus.
Either
I was almost looking at it like we're all like
Termination.
terminals, like almost like cubicles, we're tapped in to the divine at each level. Like we can hack the system from, each terminal. We're all a Grand Central Terminal.
Nice. Yeah.
It also might signify that we're at a point of completion, which is an evolutionary point. So
Yes.
you can take it that way.
I like that too.
End of one age. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, right. I think it's very cool. Okay. Let's take a look at the next one. Next slide, please, Heather. Okay. DEA, Roger. What does that stand for? Drug enforcement
agency.
Of course, right?
Everybody knows that.
Everybody knows that.
Okay, let's see what people type in on the chat. Give them a moment. And next slide. Now it's always been Drug Enforcement Administration.
That's a weird one.
I know, it's crazy.
Administering things.
Right.
I'm not sure what I dislike more, the idea of an agency or an administration.
I know. Yeah, I look at the picture. You've got the agent. They are agents of the agencies.
Right.
But they're agents of the administration.
Yeah, that's strange.
When you first
go ahead, Chris.
I would say when you first hear the title of drug enforcement, it's almost like, oh, they're going to force you to take drugs. Drug enforcement.
And administer them, apparently, right?
Taking the other meaning of agency, though, being choice or free will,
Right.
as we've noticed, reality seems to be making its own choices now, or alternately, the agency of as we knew it to be, reality being stuck in stone, perhaps has been removed, and reality is just kind of doing its own thing as we've seen things change rapidly in the last few years.
Right.
I don't know, just a different take on it.
Good one.
Yeah.
Good one.
This one's strange. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's go on to our next number 3. Okay. Which do you remember? Side by side, we've got 2 products here. Are they familiar? And if so, which one looks correct?
I am familiar with Funyuns, but I can't claim a memory on either one of those. I couldn't say I remember left or right. I probably would claim the left one as the accurate one or the one I remember, but I can't say for sure. Given the play on onions, onions.
Appreciate the honesty on that one. I know they make for some really bad breath.
You're great on road trips, though.
Funny. Now they're funny. They're funny.
Right.
I mean, which way does it go?
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so let's take a look. Next slide. Frito-Lay introduced Funyuns with the Y, the funny ones, in 1969. But now we've got the humor, right? So it's funny.
Right.
Right. Funny
Yeah.
onions. Funny. Yes.
This reminds me of the same concept of like Fruit Loops, right? Because Fruit Loops was so I always remember it spelled like fruit, and there was no fruit involved in
Right.
that.
And there's
Fruit
no
Loop cereal.
onions and Funyuns.
Yeah, exactly. So now they become more honest.
Right.
It's kind of
Right.
funny.
Yeah,
I love
It
it.
is funny.
yeah, it is funny.
It looks
So humor
funny.
is important. It does look funny. Yeah, with the Y. This one I don't have personal memory of either, but it's interesting. I like the humor. Okay, you're back, Jerry. Do you want to continue prompting
I
us
will
through the next-
definitely continue. The next one on the list is something that has become a hot button word nowadays. I've heard people use this that I didn't think even knew what the word was. The
Yeah,
word we're
HIPAA
looking
compliant.
for is, yes, sir, HIPAA. HIPAA
Right.
compliant. How do you remember HIPAA being spelled, sir?
Well, I spent a fair amount of my career, about 15 years in the healthcare industry. And so I remember it being HIPPA.
I
Yeah.
fully agree, and I think everybody here is in agreement with that. That's how I also remember it. I have a friend named Heather, not our producer, but another Heather. I have too many Heathers in my life. They really get confused when I start talking about her, but she's been around the medical field for a while too, and she's very active, an activist type person. And HIPAA was one thing that she was 100% sure it's HIPPA. I know that's what it is. Heather, producer, what is the actual answer to this one? HIPAA. Now, wait a minute.
That's a weird one, huh? I actually had a guy,
So,
Dustin,
no.
who was a radiologist, and he knew what the original HIPPA stood for. Of course, I don't know how the acronyms changed, but
Health
I remember-
Insurance Protection and Portability Act is what
Exactly.
I remember it being.
Yep.
Oh,
Health
okay.
Insurance Portability and Protection Act, or Protection and Portability Act. Yes. What are the A's now?
Health Insurance Protection. I can't remember what the two A's stand for.
I'm just
Yeah.
playing.
It's so weird. Yeah, so
I
they got
knew the original.
that's a good point. What did the P mean? What was the word, and what does
Portab-
the replacement A's?
Portability. I'm
So-
sorry, Cynthia. I do apologize.
So- Portability left, and then
An
what's-
Accountability Act.
Yes, sir. And accountability. Yes, sir.
So they've dropped the
accountability is-
protection, and it's just portability now.
And they took protection away and put in accountability. Was accountability not there?
Protection
I don't think
is
it was.
gone.
It was not there. Accountability was not. The A was act.
Okay, so the A was Act. That's still there. Accountability is the new word, and they got rid of protection.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So my interpretation of this would be each person is accountable for their own health and wellness.
Right.
No one's going to protect you. You're now
Right.
accountable.
Wow.
Right. I like that.
And-
Good read
Yeah.
on that.
If we look at reality around us today, not getting too deep into the hot button topics, I think that really speaks to each of us as far as being accountable for what we choose to or not to accept within our bodies. I'm going to leave it at that.
Absolutely.
But definitely interesting. I've seen a lot of people, and it's all over Facebook, people talking about this left and right, constantly put HIPPA. This is the way
Right.
it's remembered in reality.
Totally.
So that in itself tells me that there were a ton of people who seen it as we have seen it before, the HIPPA.
I've been on medical
Well-
sites that have it like in the paragraph in both ways. Like part of it got Mandela and part of it didn't. So it's
Oh.
like, yeah, it's weird.
So so all of us raised show of hands. We all remember HIPPA.
I definitely remember two P's. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. And
Absolutely.
Roger, you've got
Absolutely.
so much experience with it too. Wow.
Yeah.
And
These are
apparently
good
there was
choices.
another person in the chat over here said, Christine Bradley, oh my God, HIPAA. I was in healthcare too. And I've known a number of healthcare people who have
Yeah.
been freaking out about this. This is not the way they were taught or remember it being when it came out.
Exactly.
I got five.
Go
I
ahead.
got 5 kids. I had to sign like a crap load of those things. I
Now it
remember.
makes you wonder what you actually signed, doesn't it?
Right. Yeah.
You are accountable.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
We are all accountable for our own health. Keep that in mind, folks. Definitely keep that in mind. We are in the winter season, and winter has a lot of snow, and snow has a lot of whiteout possibility. But we are not talking about snow. We're talking about this product here, actually. How do you remember this product being, the one on the left or the one on the right, Mr. Roger?
Well, again, I can't claim a clear knowledge on this one. And I do remember using this product in high school, learning how to type on the Selectric typewriters. And it could go either way for me. Of course, I pronounced it white, as in white on the left. So I would say it's on the left, but I'm assuming it's changed to the one on the right. But can't claim a clear knowledge on this one, but I would choose the one on the left as most likely, since I did use whiteout, and it was white, the color.
Right. That's what I remember too. Show of hands on this one. I remember white.
Yep, white.
Like Roger says,
WH.
And I would have thought it was clever too, the other way.
So we all remember it being the one on the left. Reality says, Heather, it is the one on the right, ladies and gentlemen. WITE out was registered in 1974.
It looks so weird. It looks so weird.
I know.
When I first heard about this one, because when I started my business, like back in the 90s, we had like the IBM Selectric typewriters, and we used to buy a lot of whiteout. So I went to find an old bottle of it because I'm like, the old bottle is definitely going to be WHITE, and it wasn't. It was WITE. I'm like, I'm freaked out.
Right.
Yeah.
They whited out the H.
So what's the symbolism on this? So the
Right.
H is gone, and now it's white without an H.
I'll tell you though, when we used to use it, you could always kind of tell it was whited out. You know, you'd white it out and then you type over it, but you could tell like somebody made a mistake. So maybe this is just showing something about mistakes. I don't know.
Well,
yeah, that's
when
an
it
interesting
comes,
interpretation. You know what the product is made for. It's made for mistakes. It's made for cover-ups. You know, you white something out, a mistake, but the mistake was still there. You would just type over it.
Right.
It covered it. It didn't remove it or erase it.
That's a good point, Roger. And now the product name itself shows it's got a mistake in the name.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to fix that if you typed it that way. You'd have to fix that word white. It's not spelled correctly.
So I don't know if if the interpretation is there are no mistakes, you can't cover it up, you know.
I think it's transparency. I think we're going to transparency.
Yeah.
Truth will out. If truth is going to show. I like it.
Yeah.
There you go.
either that or reality's being witty. Haha.
I like that correction fluid.
I love that we can find a sense of humor in these things because that's, the funny and witty.
They're funny. Yeah.
Yes.
But it is a good point. It is made to cover up things, which I've said for a while that the Mandela effects may very well be revelations of some type, prophecies of some type. Look to these to see what's about to happen in our reality. That's a theory I'm working and have been working for a while, but also we see things literally changing in reality. The old way being whited out and the new way coming in. So there could be a number of interpretations on this, I would say. What do you guys think on that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would agree. Watch out for the cover-ups. The truth is underneath. The mistake is actually underneath, and you could always scratch off the dry whiteout and see the truth beneath. So maybe it's encouraging us to look deeper at the truth.
Yeah, because there's always that sense of another truth bubble, another reality that's just right here.
Just right underneath the surface. Yep.
It's right here. Yeah.
Hopefully we'll be able to plumb out a lot of truths in our society here real soon. Speaking of plumbing, let's move on to our next possible ME here. Liquid plumber is what we know it as, but how do you remember it being spelled?
Oh boy, I think it's just an R. I think it's a PLUMR, not the full word PLUMBER. So that's what I think. PLUMR, but it's a guess. It's not a clear memory.
Appreciate the honesty on that. Cynthia, what do you remember? This one I don't have a strong, some of these I don't have a strong feeling about. This is one I don't really know. Same thing with the Funyuns, and this one I don't, no idea, no clue. So no strong attachment.
People in chat are going BER.
Okay.
Plumber, liquid plumber, the regular way of spelling plumber. Shane, what do you got? Anything?
Yeah, regular way of spelling plumber is how I remember it for sure.
Yeah,
Chris?
same for me. This one reminds me of Scotchgard. How Scotchgard used to be spelled G-A-U-R-D, and now it's spelled G-A-R-D, like an abbreviation to it.
Yeah, you're right.
So I'm with Cynthia, and I really don't have a full 100 on this. Either way, just not a product that I've really made myself familiar with in time.
You never clogged the
right.
toilet?
I've never had to unclog the toilet. I didn't say I never clogged one. I just never was the one that unclogged
There's other people online. I see Robert Don just here saying Plummer. There's a couple people with the MER memories.
Okay.
Plumber, a little different. Yeah, there you go.
Interesting.
Alva,
Alva
plumber.
Yarder, Robert, couple people here.
That's
so
interesting.
Okay.
Heather, let's go ahead and see what the
Drum
answer
roll,
is.
please.
Yeah.
PLUMR, there we go. 1969, Clorox released this particular product.
So we're seeing a lot of misspelt words, and when I was growing up, they didn't do that. I mean, that didn't come along
Yeah.
until like texting. You know what I mean?
That's-
So see
I
this, to
agree
see
with you
Fruit
there.
Loops.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, now this is another interesting thing with it's clearing out clogs, right? So
Right.
we're simplifying, we're clearing out clogs, we're getting rid of the crap that's plugging things up and backing things up. It's time to clear it out. We're going to get clear channels here. And someone in the chat over here mentioned, things getting shorter as just more efficient. We're getting more clarity.
Notice the letters that are missing, Roger. It's BE
Yeah.
to B. It's what we were talking about, that final
Interesting.
highest level of state above
Yep.
channeling. Then you B. It's the
To
is.
clear the clogs, you need the BE then, I guess.
I like that.
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't
Good
even
stuff.
realize that till you
Yeah.
pointed it out, Cynthia. That's incredible.
Very cool.
They took
Very,
the
very
Love
cool.
B. Yeah, that's what's missing. So it's once again kind of like obvious hiding in plain sight,
Right.
or hidden in
That's
plain
awesome.
sight, right? You
Mhm.
can't see it. Cynthia, you saw the
Right.
hidden by pulling out what's not there. It's the BE.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Clearing the
What's missing? And that's
clogs.
what Mandela effects are like. This. It's like what's missing. It's like it's like comparing things, but you can't access all you've got is your memory, and you're just comparing what is with what you remember.
I'm all for clearing out clogs and being. I
Absolutely.
like the being emphasis. Very good.
I like that too.
Once again, let's hope our societal clogs get cleared really soon. We got a lot of clogs in society, Fauci, that are really messing things up, Brandon. Moving along, before I get too political and really ruin things here, number 7, we have another one here, a nickel. What year did the new USA nickel debut?
Oh, wow.
It'd be just approximate. Like, how long does it seem like it's been around for
The
you?
new USA nickel. I literally did not know there was a new one. I thought they were
Oh, okay,
minting
great.
stuff all the time. You look
Well, it
at
looks like this.
if you look at change in your pocket, there's so many different years and there's different, forms of them. So I can't claim any knowledge on this.
Okay.
You've seen it before?
I can't say that I have.
Okay.
So much, transactions are taking place digitally now. I haven't been handling change that much.
Okay, so I actually have a reference point between the two nickels. Here is the old nickel. I don't know how well you guys can see, with just the head
Yes,
in
I'm
the
familiar
middle.
with that. Very
Okay.
familiar with that.
Here is the new nickel with the head to the side as we're looking at on the
Okay.
screen. I'm not really familiar with this either. I just happen to have some change laying here, and by chance had two of the different types of nickels right side by side of each other. Anybody take a guess here? What year did it come out? Anybody?
Well, yeah, Shane put this together, and then I helped put the slides together, so we've seen it. But if I hadn't seen that, then I would have guessed it's fairly new. I would have thought they came out. I think I would have guessed after 2010 is what I would have guessed. Just to be honest with you, I would have guessed maybe 2011 or something.
Right.
Maybe 2010 at the earliest.
My guess would have been around 2010 when they started putting out the new quarters and the state maps
Yeah.
and all that
Yeah.
stuff. So I would agree with that assumption. However, reality says that it came out in '06. The Return to Monticello nickel has been in our circulation for, yes, sir. Thank you. I was trying to do the math and I was not accomplishing it very well.
Long time. Long time.
Long time for us not to be familiar with it, right?
Right.
Some folks in the chat said 99. You got 2005, 2010.
Okay.
85.
Well, way back, yeah.
Well, in 05 and 06, they had the other version that was sort of like Jefferson to the side. His head was still really big like that, but that one.
Right.
After that, they went to this one. They didn't go back to the original one. Like I remember,
didn't go back.
It was like they had the special one for a couple of years. They went back to the other one, and then they came out with this one like way later. But they came out with this one right after the 05, 06 era.
Yeah, it's earlier than I would have guessed.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this one being a questionable one, everybody's kind of up in the air on this, not so positive or sure about either way. Let's move on to the next one. This one may be a little more familiar to all of us. This is the American Gothic painting, of course, the farmer and his, who's he standing here with?
I mean, wife. Yes, that's the assumption. I can't say that I would know for sure, but that is farmer and his wife. I mean, is it his daughter? I don't know, but
Do you remember her looking forward or always off to the left like that?
No memory on that.
Okay.
My memory is she was looking forward, and I'm going to go ahead and say wife is how I always knew it to be. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, so I obviously know the answer to this one, but I always remember it being the wife. She was wearing different clothes. She had a bonnet on her head. You could see her great hair, and she was looking straight ahead like the farmer. They're both looking straight ahead.
And over here in chat, we have Tyrell Cord, Joe Pawlowski. I do apologize if I ruined that name. Benjamin Brieg and J.D. Peterson, all saying wife. I love how she grabbed the one name that I just totally demolished. Pawlowski, I think is what that was. Wife, and she was looking straight, says JoJo's on the screen here. Looking forward, says J.D. Peterson. Forward for sure, says Soul. So it looks like we have a very congruent, consistent agreement over here in the chat of the farmer's wife was looking forward. However, let's see what reality records. It is the farmer's daughter, ladies and gentlemen, not the wife. I did not ever know it to be the daughter. And of course, we see the head tilted to the side. She's clearly not looking forward anymore. But this is what reality records. What do you guys think?
I wanted to add to a little bit of trivia about this. So the painter was Grant Wood. And when you look into why he chose to do the farmer and his daughter, it's really interesting that the daughter is actually Grant Wood's, the painter's sister. Because, and I've been trying to research this, it's unclear if the farmer, who was actually a dentist that Grant Wood knew, if his wife in this reality either didn't want to be painted or she wasn't around. I actually tried to do some research about, you know, who the farmer was or who the dentist was, and was his wife alive at the time. I really couldn't find anything conclusive on that, but it's really interesting how farmer and wife to farmer and daughter, you know, what does that concept mean? I'm not sure about that, but I have that image of the wife burned into my memory. So this is a really strong one for me.
Yeah, someone over here, Soul Spa University, saying, I remember her looking tired and older too. Me too.
Yeah.
And the bonnet, when
too.
you said the bonnet, that landed for me as well.
Yeah, me too.
Right.
There was definitely a more match to the age of the farmer himself. And that's why when I first looked at this, I thought, well, I thought it was wife, but she's clearly a little younger than him. Not sure about that anymore. So it was a little confusing moment for me.
Right.
And she has blue eyes. I remember the wife didn't have blue eyes. She had brown eyes like the husband.
Well, when you said the bonnet, that really rings with me. I didn't even think about it, but now that you say it, like, oh wow, that does seem missing from this.
Yeah. So interpretation on this? I mean, someone's getting younger, they're looking away. What's kind of going
Well,
on?
one of the
Looking-
things I thought was the divine feminine was looking to the masculine, like things were out of whack, as a revelation of truth. Like we needed to bring back more of the divine feminine, and it sort of fits some of the other messages I got that were along that same line.
And also honoring age and wisdom so that we don't have to have this fetish about staying young forever. Not that there's anything wrong with longevity and health, but we can honor age and wisdom.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The younger looking forward to the future, the new generation coming up, and the future they're going to have to deal with, and looking at it almost scared, like very serious look on her face, going into the great unknown, if you will, is how I kind of see that.
Mm-hmm. Riffing on that, the man really here now in the present moment, kind of old age, hard work with the pitchfork, which pitchforks are held by others, the devil, etc. So here we have the present moment, which is hard work and pretty challenging. But then you have the younger feminine energy looking into the future, off the shoulder, over the shoulder, if you will. See how she's behind and coming off into the distance. So it's like here now and into the future. I like that.
And with the bonnet
And now
missing, it's also, and
Yeah.
I do apologize, Cynthia. I was going to say the bonnet missing, kind of opening the mind, expanding the area to learn, to not having that cover there to hold everything in. Go ahead.
Transparency. Yeah.
Transparent.
You can see.
That's a good point about the bonnet. Yeah.
Blinders are
'Cause
off.
Right. Keeping the crown chakra open for that connection to the divine that we're talking about. That's a good read on that.
Makes
and I like
sense.
this idea. It's the new generation now. It's not the wife. It's now the daughter. So many of us remember the wife, but now that it's the daughter, it's like a new generation is here. It is speaking to this change that's happening with the feminine. We're going to see this change with the receptive side of ourselves. There's an inner feminine in all of us. So it's not just that women are the ones changing. It's that receptivity, the yin, the one who receives, and also maybe ties in with that left brain, right brain dichotomy that we've talked about so many times. Shane, you've talked about it, and Chris, you've talked about it. So it's getting more into that intuitive side.
Yeah,
I'd like to
maybe-
go ahead, Chris.
Real quick, I was going to say she kind of looks like she's got a little bit of a sour look on her face the way when I see her. So maybe in a way too, she's like, I don't know if I want to accept my dad's truth bubble. Like I want my own truth bubble.
Yes.
So I might be moving out and moving on to
Yes.
to find my truth of my reality.
Yes. I'm moving on. You can see the just looking into the distance, moving beyond this present moment.
I'd like to
wonder-
riff on Cynthia's new generation thing here real quick.
Yeah.
Once again, her being the new generation or the representation thereof, with the,
Right.
I don't want to say fear, but the serious look on her face, like something's going on. Would you not agree that when it comes to the Mandela effect and the reality we now live in, that we are a new generation? This is the first generation of Mandela effect researchers, of Mandela effect experiencers. We are the new generation of the world. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great take on it.
Emerging
This whole
emerging awareness on the evolutionary edge for sure.
Yeah, like what was that girl that won the Golden Manny last year? And we have to do another Golden Manny, right? We have to
Yes,
award
sir.
that.
Yes.
Yeah, she was a high school student and she was like had that TED talk about the Mandela effect. So yeah, the younger generation is embracing this, and it's becoming more than just a pop culture thing. Because I've heard people talk, oh, the Mandela effect, that's just a pop culture type phenomenon. It's going to go away soon. I'm like, no,
It's not going to go away.
I don't agree with that.
It's a good one here. Very good.
It amazes me that there's so many meanings that we can find in these changes. It only speaks to the point that it is a very high likelihood that is what they're for, is to express something into reality.
And again, it loops back to the truth bubble concept, which we spent our time on here, with respect to the opening statement by the rabbi. We do not see the world as it is. We see it as we are. So we're seeing through our own truth bubble. We can't get out of it. And that's empowering, so other people would look at this and see a lot of different things. So
Well,
we're
we
choosing.
sometimes we can, yeah, and sometimes we can look at a piece of art and notice the Mona Lisa is smiling more and
Yeah.
more and more, and we might see the change. This is another painting to watch, is what I would guess. I think
Interesting.
this is significant. Yeah.
Love that.
I would second that. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions about Truth Bubbles, to Roger Marsh, for all of us here, about the Mandela effect, about anything, go ahead and put them in the chat now. Unfortunately, I have not paid as much attention to the chat as I probably should have through this particular episode, as the conversation has been quite enlightening. But go ahead and put your questions in chat. Team, do you guys have any questions you would like to apply to Mr. Marsh here?
Yeah. What got you inspired to write this book? Oh, like when you first decided, I got to do this. There's that moment. Do you remember that moment?
Well, I do. And, like I said, Next Gen Human, I released in 2009. And then in the ensuing 12 years, a lot of different ideas came through me, and TruthBubble kept coming back. It was one of those things that wouldn't leave you alone, wouldn't leave me alone, right? It kept grounding. It kept coming back. It's like, yeah, TruthBubble. And I started trying that on with friends, in my close-in circle, just try out the word. It's like a truth bubble. And then they would start using that word. And so I thought, it's got some traction, it's a meme.
Yeah.
There's something to this that, other people, I had a good friend actually share it with his daughter, and she started saying, Dad, that's your truth bubble. Even she was getting it like a 12-year-old. And I thought, well, that's a good sign. That 12-year-old is beginning to see truth bubbles. She can see her dad's truth bubble and call him out on it, and then they can have interesting conversations. So all of that, as I kind of tested the concept over the years of different ideas coming through, was getting me inspired. And then ultimately, towards the end, it's like I could see, how this was becoming a conflict in our society and on the planet, just different truths coming forward. And I thought, this is really poignant for this point in time, to help us navigate through the confusion of different truths, because people use truth as that's the fact, it's true. And so to free up a little bit from this attachment to quote unquote truth, I knew was a necessary or a very helpful concept to put forward, and that I would enjoy engaging around that conversation. So all of those things added up to being willing to write it and do it. Good question, and thank you for that.
How long did it take you to write a book of this nature?
It really wasn't very, the answer to that question is 12 years and, about 2 months, because, I collect notes. I'm a consistent journalist, and I'm just journaling and capturing ideas. I've got, stuff that's all over the place all the time. And so to a large extent, I was assembling the different ideas over the course of those years. But when I finally sat down and committed to it, I'll give a shout out to Joshua Sprague, who wrote the 30-day book writing challenge. And that showed up synchronistically in my Facebook feed right when I was thinking about writing a book. And it really worked for me. The 30-day book writing challenge, it was $99, and it helped me structure and get going. So it was basically in 30 days, I had most of the book done. And then it was another couple of weeks to really kind of get it edited and shaped and et cetera. So a couple of months, just kind of pumped right on through. But
you're from
making.
California, sir. Preliminal asks, where exactly do you remember Los Angeles being in the state of California, opposed to like mid-coast, north, south, inland?
Well, I always reference, LAX. Flying into LAX, you come in over the ocean. And, it's an airport that's right there on the coast, on the beach. And if I'm remembering the right one, I'm pretty sure that's LAX. Because there's also Orange County and Burbank and other airports down there. But I remember it's got beach. It's on the coast. Not all of it. It's a huge county. LA County is giant. Where is it?
Preliminal said for me, mid coast. I don't know. I'm just going off the chat questions at this point. For him, it was mid coast.
Oh, okay. So like central, I went to school at Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo, which is called Central Coast, California. It kind of stretches south of San Francisco, way south of San Francisco, stopping right around Santa Barbara. And then hour and a half south of Santa Barbara is Los Angeles. So it's further down the coast than mid, because you still have to make room for San Diego before you hit Mexico.
Go-Kart Bob says Cal Coastline has a bump. LA is just below that bump. Again, I'm not a California person. This is all Greek to me. I'm just a messenger at this point.
You know, the map moving around is a Mandela effect for me. As I said, you know, the North Pole was something for me. It's like doesn't really exist anymore. There's no landmass there or anything to walk on. So that was pretty shocking to me.
I remember Antarctica. Let me ask you on the map, where do you remember New Zealand in relation to Australia?
Well, just off the coast. I mean, you just go not too far east and there's New Zealand.
Oh, man.
I've never been there. I've never been to Australia either. So
I remember it being at the northwest section of Australia. It is now way down in the southeast. You were right about the east, but it's much more south than east now.
I remember it farther north than it is.
Yeah, north. Me too.
It's not that far south. So the east is right. But you remember it west? That's weird, Jerry. That's amazing.
I remember it originally in the northwest. I watched New Zealand literally dance around Australia. I've seen it in the northwest. I've seen it in the southwest. I've seen it in the northeast. Now I've seen it in the southeast. I've literally seen it dance around this other country.
I remember when it was one island, not two islands. That's how far back I go in timelines.
Yes, sir. I'm with you on that one too. Chris, glad you spoke up. Tyrell Core asked, will the Quantum Businessman be putting out more videos soon?
Yes, I'm actually, I just started working on another one. Probably won't be out until like mid to end of February, but it's going to be a cool one. It's going to be a longer one. I'm putting a lot of content into it, and it's going to be some funny parts and some really interesting things to make you go like, wow, I never thought of that way. So yeah, I'm excited about it, but we got about another month to wait. So, but it'll be worth the wait.
I've watched all the symphony of realities. They're amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Great work.
He does a great job on those, doesn't he? I do apologize if I talk over you guys. I do not mean to. Shane was gone. There was a question here. Joe said, why is it that every time I'm washing dishes, I come across a video with Shane in it? Interesting synchronicity.
Every time you're washing dishes. That's so specific.
Cleaning. You're getting clean. You're cleaning the lenses of perception, perhaps.
I think so. Yeah, cleaning
Unbiased
is a good
and on the
activity.
Washing your brain.
Yes.
Moving into that realm of uncertainty where you're not getting stuck anywhere.
Right.
No, sir. We are not washing brains here. That's what the mainstream media tries to do. Not us.
Exactly.
Right.
All right, folks. I think that's it for today. We really went through a lot. We've passed the 3-hour mark, and I don't see any more questions coming up in chat. So may I be the first to thank you, Roger, for coming by, spending time and hanging out with us and explaining this amazing book you've written, sir.
Yes, my pleasure. Absolutely. You know, I just, I've experienced a great field of psychological safety, inclusiveness, and belonging, and co-creative inspiration. So I can't thank you all enough for having me here and honoring the book and the work that I've put out in the world. So I'll do the same for you and share your work as many places as I can, and look forward to our timelines crossing again in the near future. So thank you so very much.
I hope only that would be the case. Go ahead, Cynthia.
Yeah, I just want to shout out to our next scheduled live stream, which hopefully you can make too, Jerry. It's going to be Wednesday, February 23rd, same time as today. So that's, we don't know if we're going to cover the Mandy's because we were hoping to get input from people, but we can get input from you now. I guess there's been a delay on what's happening with the Golden, with the whole movie event. I don't know when that's happening. So we were planning to be in alignment with that. We'll see. We'll see what this is about.
I believe that's been moved to March or May, one of the M months. So we'll definitely have to plan around that particular point. February 23rd, ladies and gentlemen, mark your calendars. February 23rd will be next month's season 2, episode 2 of IMEC Open Tables. Thank you so much, Cynthia. Chris Anatra, anything you'd like to add, sir?
No, today was a very enjoyable conversation. We covered a lot of points. I like how Roger put his book together. He just tied all these things that are loose ends for a lot of people and just tied it into a nice package. So thank you for being with us, Roger. Really appreciate it.
Wonderful. Thank you. That's great.
And thanks to everyone with the great questions in the live stream too. Really appreciate all of your
Love
great
the chat
energy.
stream.
Yeah, fantastic.
Lots of conscious people there. It's beautiful.
Oh, I wanted to say something. So like we have our Patreon page, right? So we're about to release, is it 4 or 5 4 Mandanimal videos? We're going to release them first to our Patreon, and then a week or so later, we're going to open it up and make it more public. So if you're not a Patreon, you'll see it a little bit later. But if you are, that'll be one of the advantages, because we did some nice editing, and they're just fun things to look at, which is a compilation of the different types of rainbow animals and golden animals and white animals and just all amazing mandanimals. So that's something that people that are using our Patreon, you'll see those videos start to come up probably as early as tomorrow. So
Really, I can tell you,
Cool.
I have seen all of these videos, and they're amazing mini-sodes. If you guys like the mini-sodes that Chris has done and the ones we've done so far, you're going to love our year in review from season 1 on our Mandanimal mini-sodes. I know I am really impressed. Our producer, Heather, does an amazing job helping us put this stuff together. Well done. Shout out to her. She don't get nowhere near enough credit
Yay,
for
Heather.
all the background work she does. So top notch. Shout out to Heather. Shout out to Shane, who had to take off early and take care of some stuff. Shout out to everybody out there in the chat, everybody listening around the world. We appreciate every last one of you guys. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, I do believe we're going to get out of here for this week or this month. This has been another amazing episode of IMEC Open Tables. Come back February 23rd for our next IMEC. By the way, Chris, what is special about the next month, February 22nd?
Oh yeah, so there's a talking about portals. There's a pretty big portal date coming up in February, February 22nd, which is 2/22/22.
On Tuesday.
On a Tuesday.
Wow.
So, yeah. So I liken that to the there's a concept called the bifurcation of timelines, where timelines are splitting into two, going into different directions, and it's possible that date could be some kind of a milestone, even if we don't see it in the seen world. I think in the unseen, there's things going on, and then I think the rest of 2022 is going to be pretty interesting. There might be some scary parts before that, but then it's going to get. I think it's just going to get better and better and better. So,
May it be so.
I second that, Chris. Thank you for that. Ladies and gentlemen, check out the book Truth Bubbles by author Roger Kenneth Marsh. An amazing journey into truth and what it could mean and should mean to every last one of us. Folks, with that said, on behalf of Christopher Anatra, Shane Robinson, Cynthia Sue Larson, our amazing producer Heather, and our special guest Roger Kenneth Marsh, remember, until next time, folks, together we go. Together we grow. Bye, everybody. Love you guys.
Bye.
Love you
Love.
guys.
Love, love, love.